if you have questions, feel free to stop us and ask your questions. No problem. We could do that. All right. So we got the recording going. Get it going here. All right, you guys can see my screen now, I presume. Um, I was hoping to launch the toolkit for Inkscape tomorrow. That was the original plan, but I didn't realize that this week was back to school week. So unfortunately, I haven't had the time to finish for tomorrow's release. So I don't know if I'll hold it all the way till next Friday. That's kind of the plan right now, is to do it next Friday. But maybe I'll just release it sooner than that, and then we're gonna go through a little bit tonight. But then next week we'll go more in detail. One of the benefits to waiting the extra week is I have a few new tools that I added, and I want to, as we go through tonight, I want you to be thinking about things that you do over and over and over and over again. If there's a way to, if you catch yourself doing things over and over again, I kind of built the toolkit based on my workflow. So if I saw myself doing something over and over and over again, I was like, you know what? And we can create a tool and you'll see some of those tools tonight. You can see if we can create a tool to make it easier, make it quicker, then we could just add the tool to the toolkit. So I'll have an extra week, because what I don't want to do is I don't want to like release the toolkit and then next week have another one and then another one and then another one, So when we release it initially, we might not release another updated one for like 60 days or something, so you're not like having to install an update, every single week. So, but there's some, ooh, Jules, you're going to see it tonight. You're going to see it tonight. So for those of you who may be new, Thursdays are normally a paid class night. So we have classes twice a week, Monday and Thursday. Both of them are at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. Tonight, we invited everyone primarily because we are showcasing some of the cool features of the toolkit for Inkscape. We're also going to be looking at the toolkit for Blender as well a little bit. So I thought, well, we'll invite everybody tonight. So, but normally Thursday nights are reserved for the baddie tier on our Patreon. So, for those that are new here that are not existing Patreon members, if you are a Patreon member, you are allowed to invite one guest every Thursday. So do keep that in mind. So if you have a friend or somebody would benefit from the classes, every paid Patreon member can also invite a friend as well. So we invite you to do that. The one main advantage to being a Patreon member is everything that we create during class, you get to download. If you're not a Patreon member, you're able to view the classes on Monday night's classes, you're able to view them, but whatever we create during that class, you would not have access to unless you're a paid Patreon member. All right. So we're here on the website because I wanted to, if you guys aren't, I try to keep up to date on everything that we post to the website. I tried to post it at least to our Facebook group. I don't always post it to the Patreon page, even though I probably should when I do a YouTube update. But there's a lot of good information this week. Different examples, logos, and things that we did. And I usually pick these video tutorials specifically because they show us a workflow thing that I think is interesting So anyhow, so if you haven't checked out the website, you could see here there's quite a few, almost 10 different videos that were posted since the last time we met. So you can peruse those a little bit. And then I wanted to, Jules, is your mic working tonight? Jules posted to the chat on the Patreon.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, great.
And so we invite you to do that if you want to share your chats. Jules shared her chat. And the question I have, I guess we'll skip to the bottom, this one. So I couldn't quite make out exactly what you were trying to do, but from what I gathered, what you're trying to do is eliminate this black line right here and this black line right here. Is that right?
Yes, and then I was trying to disconnect from the ribbon. So I was like, okay, I need to go back to his videos.
So this image is fine. You just want to eliminate that black line there and here.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Well, I can tell you from my experience with chat, those types of refinements are not very easy to do. So not very easy to get chat to do for us automatically. But the good thing about you posting this is we can show you how to accomplish that, just using Inkscape. So we can get most of the, so the point is we can get most of the way there with chat, but those real, the certain things like this, even I struggle sometimes too. It's easier just to take it upon ourselves to do it than to try and force chat into it.
Because I remember you saying for it not to connect the black with the other black, so that way Inkscape, wouldn't connect it all together. It would be separate, and I couldn't do it.
Okay, so that brings me up another question. Because maybe we're asking it to do the wrong thing in that scenario. Are you trying to get Braswell raised, where this portion will be higher than the rest of it?
Yes.
Is that the goal? Okay. Then we probably were asking it to do so, based on your chat prompt here. It could be worded differently where we may have more success. Let's put it that way. But we'll see. Sometimes chat does a very good job, and other times chat can be very frustrating. So we'll see if we can get it to do what we want here. So that's one thing we're going to take a look at. So, but I wanted to show you another little project here that I thought would be of interest. During the week, different people send me things, and I thought, oh, that's something that I don't think we've covered before. So let's go into Bamboo here. I did post this lampshade to the Patreon today. So. All right, so this customer sent me this. So this was an STL file. I don't know, where he got it exactly. Actually, he sent me 2 files. So I don't know where he got this file, if it was a Make a Roll file or what exactly it was. But what he's doing with this post is he's making little tabletop signposts, and I've seen them, and they were really cute. So, and I'm guessing it's probably, a bought file or something he got off Make a Roll or something like that. But this post is attached to the base. And I thought this would be a good idea for those who are maybe doing like craft shows and things. Like if you wanted to 3D print a sign, for your tabletop, that this might be useful. Um, but at any rate, what he wants is he wants to um, take this post and be able to screw it into the base. And this post is part of the base. It's the way it was designed. So I was like, okay, well, we can take a look at that. So we can show you how we can make it so we can thread this post into the base. It's not necessarily all that obvious how we would go about doing that. So he sent me this base, and then I asked him, well, do you have the extension pole that you would add to it? And so this is the extension pole. And in here, if we look underneath and just turn it just right, you see those threads on the bottom of our post here. Okay. So what we can do is we can utilize those threads because that post screws into this one. So we could utilize those threads for the base here. So that's what we're gonna fix it up here. Yes, Audrey said that Texas is getting pummeled by thunderstorms. I think she must be logged in on her phone or something. So anyhow, I thought this could be a useful little task for us. So we're going to take our base here, and we're going to go to our cut plane tool. And by default, it's always going to default to the center. And this little yellow square here in the middle, we can drag it down. And you see how it gives us this little white ring around this. This will become important later. But that just shows you what this geometry is. And as we pull it down, it changes. You see, as we get to a certain point, it changes. Okay. So we're gonna right there, we're gonna cut it off. So now you can see it's bigger at the bottom here. So we're gonna click on cut to parts and perform this cut. And then if we all click this piece, we can hit delete. And so now we have that. Okay. So now we can move our attention to this, and we're going to make a copy of it. So we're just going to hit Control C and Control V, and now we have a copy. And then we're going to do the same thing to this. So we're going to go ahead and use Cut Plane. Move this over here a little bit, and I'm just right-clicking to drag it over. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to pull this down, but we're going to pay attention to that outline right there. So we're pulling it down, we keep pulling, and so there you see what happens there. That's where the threads begin. Okay. And I want to be mindful of this right here. So you see the threads basically begin at this 10.88. So I'm going to change the layer height here. Let's go ahead and change it to say 13. Now remember, the threads are starting at basically 11. Okay. So in this case, I'm making it 13. So we'll go ahead and hit enter. And then we could go ahead. We do have cut to part selected. So we'll go ahead and perform the cut. And then we can delete the top part. So we're going to alt click the top section and hit delete. And now it just leaves us with this little nub here. So we're going to turn that over. Okay, just like so. Now, one thing to be mindful of when we're rotating, if we grab right here, this little cube, if we come to the outside, we can kind of free form. But if we come to the inside, it will snap to these lines. And that could be useful, when we're flipping things over like that. Or we could have just entered in if we go back to rotate here, we could have just entered a value instead of, manually turning it around. So we could have just entered 180 and it would have done the same thing. Okay, so now what we need to do is see how big a diameter this is. So if I select this and go to scale, you can see it is roughly 20 millimeters. You see that? So what we want to do is we want to cut a hole in our base here where this can fit into it. But this is a basically a 20 millimeter diameter. So what we're going to do is we're going to make us a 19 millimeter circle. So it's going to be slightly smaller. So we're going to go ahead and right click on our build plate here and choose add primitive. And we're going to do a primitive cylinder. And we're going to scale this to, let's do 19. And this will be 19. And then for our height, I don't know, we could do something like 30. It doesn't really matter on the height so much. Actually, it does matter. Let's do this. So just a reminder, I clicked on this and we're going to go back to scale. So remember, this is 13, but remember our threads start basically at 11, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to set this to 12. You'll see how this will all come together here in just a second. So then what we're going to do is we're going to take this piece and we're going to control click our base, right click and merge. And then we're just going to assemble this. So how are we going to assemble this? Well, we're going to go select the whole assembly, go to our assembly tool, and then we're going to click this face. And then we're going to click on this face. And that's the two faces I want to match up. Okay. So you see here, we could just click on center coincidence. And now we've got halfway there. But now I still want to line these two faces up. So I have this one highlighted in blue, and then the second face will be highlighted in pink. And then I could just zero those out. And you see the difference there is 12. So I'll just go ahead and zero this out. And now you can see that those two pieces are, in fact, the same face now. Okay. So we'll go ahead and escape out of that. I haven't yet, Audrey. I haven't yet. But we're going to. So back to our cylinder here. We could give it a different color just to help differentiate a little bit. So now you can really see kind of how that sits in there. Now, as a general rule, when we're doing unions and mesh booleans, subtractions, it's not advised to have faces line up like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our cylinder and go to our scale tool. And we're just going to make this a little bit taller here. So grab our cylinder and we're going to make this bigger. So let's go ahead and stretch this out. You can see that when we go to our scale tool, let's do that. You see this blue cube? When we did that center coincidence, it kind of flipped this over. And so what we want to do is flip it back. So let's do that real quick. So we're just going to go ahead and turn it back around. So now when we go into our scale tool, you see how the cube's on top? So now if we grab this cube, watch what's going to happen. If I grab that cube and I drag, you see what happens? It scales from both sides, right? It's scaling up top, but it's also scaling down at the bottom. So we would just add the control key to that. And now you can see we can scale it from the top, but the bottom positioning is fixed. And that bottom positioning is important. So we just wanted it, instead of having it flat level, we just want to pop it out a little bit, okay? Because we're going to do a Boolean operation. And so we just wanted that piece to be slightly above that plane. So let's go ahead and do that Boolean operation. We'll go to Mesh Boolean here. And yes, the green cylinder, we want to deduct from the base. We'll go ahead and choose execute. And now you see, now we have that hole. Now remember, I said the depth of that hole was important. So now we have this piece that we need to fit into that hole. So what we're going to do here is, first of all, in order to do this, these two pieces have to be part of the same assembly. So we have the one piece selected, We control click the other one, we right click and merge. And now those are both selected. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and do our assembly tool again. So we're going to go back to our assembly tool. We are going to click the top of that face right there. And what face do we want to match up? Well, we want to match up that one. And then you see here, we could go ahead and we can just zero this value out. We'll do that. So you may not look it, but now this face is dead level with that one, okay? We notice we didn't use eccentric coincidence in this particular example, although we could have done that. Click this, right click and center. And then if we all clicked our base and right click and center, you see how everything lines up. So now we have our thread perfectly in the center of our pipe, and you can see now we can screw right into it there. Okay. Now, we don't have to combine these pieces if we don't want to, but we can. So it doesn't really matter if we do or don't as far as the slicer goes. So if we slice it, let's just go ahead and slice it. I'm gonna, you know what I'm gonna do here, just so it's easier for us to see. Instead of black, let's make it white. You can see it a little bit easier that way. Let's go ahead and reslice it. And if we zoom in here, as we scroll down, you see what the software does there. And you see right here, you see this right here? That's our grid fill. And this is probably not very good for our particular purpose. So we're going to show you, how we could fix that a little bit. Because we probably want this a little bit stronger than it is. You see that outside wall is very thin. So we want to probably thicken that up and make it a little bit more robust. But the slicer doesn't care that there's actually two separate parts there. So remember, the thread was 20 millimeters, and we made our hole 19 millimeters. So there's a 1 millimeter gap, right? There's a 1 millimeter overlap. And that's why we did that. That's why we did what we did. We made it a little bit smaller so we would have that that overlap. But the slicer fixes that overlap for us. So as long as it's all part of the same assembly, it takes care of that for us. So what we might want to do on this particular one, we could do it by object if we wanted to, or we could do it globally. But you could see here, we can bump up the number of walls, for example, and then when we reslice it here, and you notice what's happening. So we have some grid fill right there. But notice here, right there, all the way up to this point, we have six walls here. And then the rest of it is all solid right there where the threads are. Now, something to think about when you're designing is, and this can be useful in lots of different situations, but you saw what we did there, right? We added 6 walls. But where we wanted the 6 walls was really in this piece right here. We didn't necessarily need 6 walls over here. And so what we could do is we could use that cut plane tool to cut this away from this. And so here could have our default maybe 2 or 3 walls, but where we needed the 6 walls, then we could have it this way. Right now, that's all one part. So when we apply 6 walls strength, it applies it to everything. So what I want to do here is just an experiment, just to show you. Let's go ahead and add a new build plate. devil's in the details, when you're designing. There's a little bit more to it. So this is one. So let's see how long that takes to print. So, that one takes an hour and 20 minutes. Okay. So that's not too bad. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to make a small difference over here. And we are going to cut this little piece off. So we'll go to our cut plane tool. And you see that ring, that little white ring right there. So we can pull this down. And you see it changes right there. See how that changes? So we're going to cut it right there at that base. So again, we choose cut to parts and we perform the cut. And now this, you can see, is now separate. Okay. So let's go back and select this piece. And let's go back into our strength tab here. And let's set that back to the default here, which I guess was 2 wall loops. And then this one here, we'll just double check. Yep, that's still 6. All right, so let's just see the difference. The first one was an hour and 20. Almost no difference there. That's interesting. So not much difference there. So let's go ahead and look at the preview a little bit closer there. But you can see how this is all solid. All the way down. All solid. And then there, it breaks away to where there's some grid fill going on there. But if we pull that down, you can see, yep, it's just the two walls. So not a lot of difference. That's interesting. So that's something to think about. Even though it reacted a little bit differently than I thought, we actually learned something that's kind of interesting. So on the one hand, we had a model that had 6 walls, which obviously is going to be much stronger than a model with 2 walls. But even though we added 6 walls, guess what? We didn't sacrifice hardly any print time in doing that. But what we did is we had a much stronger part by adding 6 walls. So that's something to think about. In this particular instance, there wasn't much difference in print time. So we could have a stronger part with roughly identical print time. So why not just have the stronger part, right? So that's the takeaway. So we proved something I didn't plan on proving, but but it worked out. So because there's not much print time difference, we'll just stick with the original here. Now, what we need for this particular application, this pole is going to screw into here, but we need this piece on top so that the next pole can attach to it. The little desktop stands he was showing me were 2 poles tall, and then the signpost went on top. So we have to put this on top here. So that part is really pretty straightforward to do as well. So I'm just going to make a duplicate. And then this actually gets printed like that. Okay. So we need another one of these up top here. So we're going to take this one and we're going to do cut plane same way. Now, by default, when we use that cut plane tool, it cuts it right in the middle. And that's perfect for this particular example. So we'll go ahead and remember, cut to parts is turned on. So we'll perform the cut. And then we'll alt click the top and just get rid of it. And so now we have this. And you can see it's solid. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and copy this. So Control C, Control V, and so you can see what it did there. So this one here, we're going to center it, right click and center it to the build plate. And then this one here, we're going to rotate. So instead of doing it manually, we'll just enter 180 here in the Y direction. and it does the same thing. So, but we're going to go ahead and right click on that and center that as well. So now we have those two sitting on top of one another. So we're going to shift click to select them both at the same time. And if you look here in your objects tab right here, you can see that in fact we do have two of them selected. So we can right click and merge. So now these two are just sitting right on top of one another. So we'll select one, and you can see how that is kind of highlighted here at the bottom. And if I select the other one, you can see how that indentation is highlighted on the top. That's how we know which one we have to move. So we'll grab our move tool, and we're just going to move this up. Now, we don't know how much we're going to move this up, but I want to match those two together. Okay. So to do that, we'll use our assembly tool. So we'll click on our assembly, grab our assembly tool. We can click on that face and we can zero this out. So now those two faces are perfectly touching one another, which is fine. But I think just to be on the safe side, I like them to be like connected to one another. So I'm going to lower this piece down. We could just grab it and, just manually do it. Or you see where this says 100.5. Let's just back that off to, let's just say 98.5. Okay. And so now there's a 2 millimeter overlap between the two parts. Now we can leave it like this if you want to, or we could go ahead and union those together and make that a permanent connection, which is what I'm going to do. But for the purposes of slicing, it doesn't matter. We don't have to put these two together. But we'll go ahead and do a mesh boolean, and then we'll come to union here, and then we'll choose execute. And now those two pieces are fused together as one, and you can see that it's right here. Those are now one piece. And if we select those and right click and split, and we'll split it to objects here, you see we can still split it apart even though we did a union here. So if we ever needed to back up, we still could. But you see now this will screw into the base, then this piece will screw into this piece, and then the actual sign screws on top, and you're off to the trade show. Now, on a related note, I wanted to show you something that if you're not aware. So let's go ahead and let's add a cylinder. And I don't know when Bamboo came up with this. I can't tell you exactly when they did this, but I just want to give you a little example of something that you can do now. But this is, I would say it's fairly recent. But back to our cut plane tool, and we're gonna grab our yellow thing here, and we're just gonna come up here, something like that, and we're gonna uncheck this cut to parts. And when we uncheck cut to parts, you see that we have an option here where we can add connectors. And so we'll go ahead and choose add connectors here. And you can see that we have a new option. I say new, like I said, this is not really that new, but it's fairly new. But you see, we can add a thread connector. And we can change the size of our thread. We're going to click on the middle of geometry here. Let's see here. Let's go back in. Usually it would show me. Oh, there it goes. Okay. And that's what I was looking for. But anyhow, so you can preview your thread connector, and you don't need it this deep. Let's see here. Maybe something like that. And then for the size, maybe we'll back it off a little bit. Okay, let's go with something like that. All right. And then we could go ahead and confirm this connector here. And we'll go ahead and perform the cut. And we didn't get what we expected, I don't believe. Let's take a look at this. Well, let's see here. We didn't get what we were supposed to get. Let's try this again. So we are gonna perform the cut here. And no, I went too far here. So let's go back in. Let's move this up. Add connectors. We want a thread connector. That's what we're looking for. But it's not showing it. I think it shows it inside there, but no, that's the only option. Well, shoot. I don't know. I don't know why it's not working. So I'll have to investigate that a little bit. But at any rate, we're supposed to be able to add a threaded connector. Has anyone played with this up to this point, or even knew that that was an option? I may have to review the documentation to see if there's something I'm doing wrong, because I've only used it a little bit. But it's supposed to. Those threads are supposed to. Now, what's going on there? That's why. I don't know why that's showing up down there and up top. So I know that is the thread height. I don't know. That's strange. Nope. All right. I'll investigate that, and I'll post a video to see if there's something I'm not doing that I should be doing there. But I have played with that a little bit with some success, making little boxes with threaded lids and things like that. So I'll experiment with that a little bit more here and see if I can't figure out if there's something I'm doing wrong. So I'm just going to save this. All right. So that one's done. So we're going to go out here to look at Jules' project here. So first of all, if we look at this artwork, it is not very good because it's very tiny, very microscopic. Luckily for us, chat doesn't care if we give it garbage. But this is, it's just really tiny. It's hard to even see on the screen, all the details here. But chat more or less got the idea here. And if we look at and that's why we post all of our chats, because you can read the text, and Jules read the text and is basically trying to apply what we had done previously to her project. But the wording is different. So if you read this, it says, okay, chat, create a clean 3-color for 3D printing the black outline. Can you make it different color not connecting to the Braswell box ribbon. So no shadow effects from this image, and get it ready for 3D printing and vinyl cutting. It's not super clear, right? At least to me, it's not super clear. And then this is what chat ultimately gave her, and it wasn't exactly what she's looking for. So what she's looking to do is to take this Braswell and have it kind of like pop out of the rest of the design. I'm assuming she's doing a hype chain here. And it's missing an image, and I'm not sure why, but it says, okay, chat, this is great, but I don't want the outline of the ribbon in the Braswell to be gray. I want it to be a different color underneath the Braswell box. Keep the other colors the same. That's just a little confusing. It was confusing to me. I wasn't sure exactly what she was wanting to do exactly. And so it gave her more or less, I think, what she had, but the outline was just a different color in this example. So anyhow, she kind of went on and on, giving it different props because what she was wanting, it wasn't giving her. So let's see if we can go back to the original here. So we'll copy the original image, and let's see if we can make it do what we want it to do. So we're going to add a new chat, and let's go ahead and just work it together here. Okay, chat, can you clean this image up and get it ready for 3D printing? We want to limit the number of RGB colors to 3 RGB colors only. That extra little 3 RGB colors only, you remember in Jules' prompt, she more or less said the same thing, only slightly different. She said 3 colors. And for some reason, I don't know, if we give it more specifics and say, hey, we want 3 colors, 3 different RGB colors only, just adding those RGB, like it's just a little bit extra. 3 colors ought to be good enough, but no, we want 3, because 3 colors, right? We have red, right? But we have different shades of red, but they're still red. So if you take the literal term of 3 colors, 3 blues, 3 reds, whatever, right? When we're more specific and we say 3 RGB colors, there's no ambiguity there. And chat loves no ambiguity. If you give it an opportunity to think and create on its own, you're going to get very mixed results. So we say, no, chat. We want 3 RGB colors, then there's no ambiguity there. All right, so this is essentially what Jules got, and this is what we got. Now, what we're doing here is we're kind of asking a lot of chat, in a certain sense here. So what we're going to try and do, this just happens to be kind of a unique, interesting logo. What we're trying to do is this black right here, this black outline, all the way around, over, down, and back up. We want that all to be a different color, so that when we go in to create our SVG, that all of this can pop out from the rest of it. And that's just a little tricky, to expect chat to get that right for us. So we're going to try and see what it does, but I'm not going to fight it too much. And that's part of the art, is what we can actually ask chat to do and expect, and what we just have to give up and say, okay, we're going to have to figure this out on our own, and use our own Inkscape skills to ultimately get what we're looking for. So let's go ahead and try it. Okay, chat, this looks good. Now what I would like you to do is take the black outline around the red ribbon in the middle of the design, and I want you to turn that to a lime green. So that is going to be a very different color than what the rest of the design is. Jerry, did you have a question? I don't know if you're trying to talk, Jerry, but your microphone's muted. Okay. Now, this may not look very successful, but it actually is precisely more or less what we need to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish here. So now we still have this black outline, but as far as what's lime green, that's more or less what we need. So now we just need to ask chat to make it a little bit bigger. So I'll show you what we're going to do here. Okay, chat, this looks good, but we need to make a small change to that lime green outline. The overall height of this artwork is 150 millimeters. I need you to make that black, or excuse me, the green outline. I need you to make it about 3 millimeters wider to the outside than it currently is. It's thinking. At least I hope it's thinking. There we go. Yes, it was thinking. So we did something very specific there. We gave it a size reference. So we told it that the whole design was 150 millimeters, because if we asked it for a thicker green line, it would have done just that, thicker. It would have just done an arbitrary, made it thicker, you know, whatever it thought we wanted. But by giving it a size reference that the whole thing is 150 millimeters, and then we gave it a specific, we said we wanted that green outline to now be 3 millimeters wider than it is, it can kind of get an idea of exactly how far to the outside we wanted to extend that green outline. So let's see what it gives us here. And it gave us that, which that obviously is not what we wanted. So at this point, I would probably abandon ship, because it's probably going to be more work than it's worth, because it gave us kind of an obscure result. So if we go back to this one more or less gives us what we wanted. So we're going to call it good right there, and we'll fix it all up in Inkscape from there on out. Okay. So let's go ahead and grab this design, and we're going to right click and copy image. And just want to look at this real quick here. Well, let's go ahead and copy the image. This could be a little bit challenging. Part of our issue is, you see there's just a real thin line, black outline right there. Part of our issue here is that this was a very tiny image to begin with. And so this, sometimes when we're working with real small images, we could have some challenges when it comes to converting them to SVG. But we'll go ahead and try it and see how it works out. So let's go ahead and go into Vectorizer AI here and paste it. So Control V. It's going to go ahead and convert it for us. And then we are gonna download it here. What I think is interesting about a project like this, and I was talking with somebody earlier in the week about this, is we don't see a lot of this type of design demonstrated in other types of 3D modeling software. Like I have looked to see if there is someone demonstrating this is what I would call a fairly complicated design. It's not quote unquote easy. Um, but what I wanted to see is there somebody demonstrating complicated designs like this in Tinkercad or complicated designs like this in Fusion or Blender or really any design software. I haven't seen like a step-by-step video on on any type of complicated design like this. Because I am genuinely like interested. Like, is there an easier way that I don't know about? Because I wish there was. I wish we could say, oh, we could just click, click, click. But what we're gonna make and what we could get through, one of the I hear all the time, oh, just go to Maker Lab and do image to keychain. Well, yeah, you get something, but you won't get what we're gonna create. And so, like I said, I've not seen any other type of design software that demonstrated the way we're going to do it here. So let's go ahead and go into Inkscape here. And let's take a look at it here and see. So there's this one. All right. See what we get here. So the process is the same once we get to this point. We're going to right click and we're going to choose ungroup. You can see here we've got lots of groups. So we're going to right click and ungroup again. And now we have parts. And surprisingly, like when I start a design, I just like to look at what we actually get. And I'm a little bit surprised by this one because I was expecting a lot more parts. We have a lot of parts, but I was expecting more. So this shouldn't be too bad. I am going to go ahead and open up the toolkit though, because we would not want to do something this complicated without it. I used to do it all the time because I had no choice. But oh, there's Kia. Kia's joining the crowd. Kia, look at the toolkit here, Kia. You came just in the nick of time. We're going to turn this into a hype chain here for Jules. So first thing, we're going to delete our background. So that's pretty straightforward. Let's look here. All right. Now, I want to take care of this right here. See this secondary black outline? Let's take care of that right off the bat here. So I'm going to zoom in tight here. I want to show you something here. You see how this is rounded? Now, we covered this the other night, but I don't want that rounded. So what we're going to do here, I want that to be nice and square. So this is how you do it. We're going to control click, and we're just going to drag this. And I guess you don't even necessarily have to control click, but we're just going to move that node and drag it up to where you think it should be. And then right here, make it a corner node. See, now we have a nice sharp corner. Now, do we need this node right next to it? No. So we just select that and hit delete. Okay. So and then we can come down here. Let's look at this corner. So this is the same situation. So we double click on the green and we just click and drag that node down to where we think it should be, which is roughly right there. Make it a corner, and then we really don't need this one. Okay. And then we could just finesse that a little bit back to where it was. And when we offset this, when we go to offset this, we could even bring this in a little bit. We don't really need that one either. We'll have a nice sharp corner here. So those two corners. Now let's see here. What do we got here? Same thing. So we're going to double click. And this is just me being picky. Like if you hire me to do a design, I will be picky because I like sharp corners instead of rounded corners. So I'll just take the extra step. It only doesn't take that long, in reality. So you see here, we've got this corner going on. So we're just going to drag this up. Just ignore and just pretend you're just going to, just come along here. Okay. And then we'll just delete that. We'll click on that and make it a corner. And then same thing here. We could delete those. Don't really need those. Okay. So like I said, when we do our offset, now those will be all nice sharp corners. So we have to repeat the same process over here. Double click. Just drag this down. Make it a corner. And then delete that. Then we can fine tune it here. Okay, same thing here. We'll just grab one of these nodes. That's a control handle here. So we'll grab this node and just drag it up about where we think it should be. Make it a corner and delete these. Delete those. And then we can go ahead and delete that one. Okay, now we have nice straight. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing over here. Double click, drag this up, make it a corner, delete that one. Then down here, there's only a couple more. Down there, make it a corner, delete that one. And then we can adjust our control handles a little bit if it gets a little out of control. And I guess we'll go ahead and straighten these out. I don't think we need to, but we'll go ahead and do it. Delete that one. And we've got one more to go here. Drag this up. See, we have two nodes selected, so we can't have that. So we just want the one. We'll make it a corner, and we don't need that one. All right, so all the way around the important parts here, we have all sharp corners. I don't think I did this one. So let's go ahead and do it. Even though I don't think we necessarily need to, let's just go ahead and do it. We did all the others. We'll make it a sharp corner. Delete that one. And we'll fix this. And we could do either one. So you could drag this one over if you wanted to, like that, and make that one a sharp corner, and then delete that one. However you want to do it. Okay. So now we've taken care of all of our important corners that we needed to take care of. We didn't take care of the inside though. So, but I think we're just going to leave it just like that because we're going to offset to the outside anyhow. So when we're doing offsets, so in this case, we actually don't need to duplicate the shape because it's already behind our red piece. So we just need to make that green piece bigger. So in this particular instance, we don't need to duplicate first. So let's just go ahead and offset this and see what happens here. So we'll come to the offset tool here in the toolkit, just because it's a little bit easier than doing it the Inkscape way. So remember we told chat to offset at 3 millimeters. So let's offset at 3 millimeters and see what we get. Now it will take us a second. But you could see, let's go into wireframe mode here so we can see this. So we click on our little monitor display here. So you see what that 3mm did? That's almost exactly what we needed. And the only reason I knew that is because I've done a lot of designs that way. So another thing to point out is that we have this overlap here. You see that? Overlaps don't matter because our slicer will kind of sort all of that out for us. So let me show you an example of that I just recently did here. So you can see this more clearly what I'm talking about here. I just have to remember what the name of it is. There it is right there. So this was a design I did for someone just a couple of days ago. So there are 3 different like award hype chains. And what's interesting about this is they're all more or less very similar, but it's this centerpiece right here. So if I move this out of the way, in fact, let me undo that. And we'll go to our objects tab here. And if we look here at our objects, we'll just select the whole thing here. We look at our object names, you see it says Cuban, 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 Cuban. But then down here, let's see here. Trying to look and see what we got here. This should be at the bottom of this stack here. Let me look. Oh, I was looking at the wrong one. Yes. So right here. Then we'll go to our move tool and we'll reveal what's behind this. So you see, this was the entire design, and then this just gets slapped right on top. But the slicer, because of all those conflicts that are happening, the slicer will sort all that out for us. So those overlaps don't matter and are actually preferred to a certain degree because the slicer will figure it all out for us in the end. So we don't have to be too particular back over here. We don't have to be too particular exactly what's happening here. So this will all make more sense when we actually make the design. But like I said, I'm not concerned about the overlaps. But now we have our separate piece. You know, the takeaway here is we have our separate piece that we wanted for our projection. And like I said, this will all make more sense when we go to build it. But that's just in a nutshell, that's what we're trying to do here. All right. So that's taken care of now. And this little gap here is okay. I'm not going to stress over that too much. His nose should be white though, probably to match the rest of it here. So now what we have to do is we have to go through and start prepping this. And unfortunately, there's no real quote unquote easy way to do it, but it's easier than you might think. There's a lot of parts here. And if we understand how we're going to print this in the end, that's the real takeaway. You have to know, what it is you actually want in the end. So let's just dive in and start, and we'll work our way through it. So first thing, let's go ahead and turn off our, you can see there's some new icons here that we might be able to take advantage of here in a minute. But this right here, let me show you something. I got to back up because this is something that, believe it or not, troubles me. And I don't know if it troubles you guys or not, but it drove me absolutely bananas. When we go to File and Open, we get this dialog box. Now, why Inkscape is this way, I have no idea, because every single other program, like watch, when we go into Bamboo and we choose file open, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what program it is. This is the standard dialog box. What do you see up here? You see a search box. We can search our desktop for whatever file it is we want to import, right? Or whatever file we want to open. So why Inkscape is this way? I have no idea. Makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. But it would always drive me crazy because I'm looking for a file, but I don't know exactly where it is on my desktop, but I have no search box. So I would have to open a separate Windows dialog box, search for the file, and then drag and drop it. And so that drove me crazy. So I added this button here today. So yay, look at there. We have a proper open dialog box now in Inkscape. So I'm happy about that. So you see here, you've got our standard, what we're used to seeing everywhere. I mean, that's just the standard Windows dialog box that every program uses except Inkscape. So when we want to open a file, we just click on this button. And then when we want to import the file, we right click on that button. And then it'll import it into the existing image or the existing document. So I am happy about that. So let's go ahead and let's go to part editor here. And let's go ahead and name this the backplate. Now, because I think pretty sure this is going to be a hype chain. Is that going to be a hype chain, Jules?
Yes.
Okay, so the standard extrusion for hype chains is 8. That's what I use. So we'll go ahead. We don't need to apply a Z height, although we could, and if we did, it would be 4, half of 8. But we'll go ahead and apply it, and then we'll turn it off. So now we can see what we've got left here. We'll go ahead and take our lower white here. And this is a new feature. I don't think I've done some videos, but I don't think I've ever done it live in class because these buttons here are new. These are new, brand new. So anyhow, what we could do here is we can select our white here, and we can right click on this button right here. And what that does is it marks that fill color, and then I can make a selection, and I have other colors selected. And so I could say, well, pick up all the white colors within this selection. And so when I click on that button, all the red parts all go away. And so all I have left are white parts. And so there's certain times where that could be really useful. And so you can see here, we've got a bunch of those parts. And we can go ahead and merge all of that together like so. And we'll just call this lower white for this example. Now, and we can tab through these fields. So if we're up here in part name, we can tab, it'll go to extrusion. We tab again, it'll go to Z height. So for the extrusion here, we're going to do 2. And for the Z height, we're going to do 8. And the more classes you see and the more videos you watch, the more you do it yourself, you'll understand that these values are very, very standardized for whatever product we're working on. In this case, we're working on hype chains. So if you just stick with the 8mm backplate, and there's a reason that we use 8mm. There's a couple of reasons. But one of the reasons that we use the 8mm backplate is the ring that connects to the chain is slightly thicker than 6mm. So that's why we use 8. And whenever possible, I like to use even numbers. And the reason I like to use even numbers is because it's easier on the math, right? So if half of 7 is 3.5, but it's easier, half of 8 is 4. So when we're trying to do math in our heads, that's why I try to use even numbers. So anyhow, like I said, the more hype change you do, the more this just becomes automatic because the numbers are the same on whatever height chain it is. So let me turn on my backplate just to illustrate a point here. If we understand what's going to happen here, this lower white is sitting directly on the backplate. Okay. Now the red here is sitting on the backplate. So if the extrusion value of white is 2 and the Z height is 8, well, what do you think red's going to be? It's going to be the same. It's going to be 2 and 8. But football is sitting on top of red. So it could be extruded 2, but it can't be 8. So that's why we add one value. So in our case, it's going to be 9. And so once we start understanding, like how all the stacking works and so forth, then, this will all make more sense in the end. So anyhow, that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to do the same kind of thing that we did previously, where we're going to select a shape. We're going to right click it to mark that fill, but then we're going to come in here and select everything. Just, make a broad selection like this. And so we have the word football selected as part of our selection, but we can filter that out. So we just click on that button. It will filter out and deselect football. And now we just have our red bits selected here. And so if we pull that away, you see that we just have our red bits. And that's all we wanted. So let's go ahead and we will, we'll call it lower red. And for the extrusion here, let's do 2. And for the Z height will be 8. And this will all make more sense when we actually go to build the 3D model and see, if we do get the results that we were hoping to get. I like to turn things off as we work through them, just so they're not in the way. So we can just keep going here, and we'll go ahead and turn that off. Now we have the word football here. Now I would like to look at this for a second here. So let's go in and look at wireframe. And you can see that we have pieces of our football missing. All right. And I just wanted to show you this so you understand how this all works together. If you understand what to expect every single time, then you know exactly what to look for every single time. So I'm going to back up a couple of steps. Now, I know this, and you probably know it too, because you've probably seen it in previous demonstrations. The way that vectorizer AI works. We already talked a little bit about how white is on top of black, how red is on top of black, how football is on top of red. But remember, anytime we're using vectorizer AI, this is what to expect, especially with text. We don't see it, but you see these red parts that are on top of white. So vectorizer AI makes us stacks and stacks and stacks, okay? So I'm just going to take this piece and turn it off just so we can see it a little bit more clearly. But so you see the word football there? And I'm going to go ahead and turn off my backplate too. So you've seen this in previous demonstrations where we would have to take this piece, we would have to shift click the white, and then how we would have to trim it, right? And then we would do the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, right? And you'd have to do that for all of our text. So you see here, like in the Braswell text here, we have a similar situation. We have black on top of red, then we have white, then we have black again, and then red on top of that, right? So we have all those layered stacks. And so if we understand that, then we know what to look for in every single design that we convert with that vectorizer AI. So this is something that I've discovered that I was doing over and over and over again, and I didn't want to do that anymore. Because I know this is what vectorizer AI gives us, is this kind of stacking effect. I want to be able to click one button and have all of these pieces vaporized and cut into the lower lettering. So that's what this tool does right here. So we just click on that, and it analyzes the design and takes care of that for us. So I only know how I work. So if you find yourself doing something over and over and over again, and you could say, hey, I wish I had a tool that did this, let me know, because you could see how the toolkit started a month ago, how, somebody was asking, well, what other tools could you add? Well, I don't know, really sky's the limit, right? We just, if we understand, what steps we're doing over and over and over again, then we can automate that. And so, boom, I just created that little button so we don't have to fight that no more. So anyhow, so yes, we can grab football and we'll go ahead and bring that together here. And then I have to turn back on my red ribbon. So I just wanted to point that out. So back to where we were, we need to take all the lower red and make it one piece. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to right click here, and then we're going to select everything. We're going to have the white football, but if I left click here, it'll filter out football. And so now I just have my red bits, and I can go ahead and merge those together. And now we can call this lower red. And it is going to be 2 and 8, because that is what white is. But then football here, we're going to go ahead and call that football. And that is going to be 2 and 9. And then that will sit where we want it to sit. And like I said, I do like to turn things off as I go. So let's do that. Let's shift select those pieces and let's just turn them all off. So we know that those are all been dealt with. Now let's skip up to the top here and go ahead and take care of this. Now all of this, you can see here, none of this is sitting on top of one another. So all of the red and the white is both sitting on black. Okay, so I think these two pieces are two separate pieces here. Let me look at this. What is this? Yeah, those are two separate pieces. So let's go ahead and select that piece. We'll shift click this red piece. We'll shift click this one, shift click this one, and combine all those pieces. And we'll just call it upper red. Now that's all sitting on black. So it's going to be extruded 2. Always, I say always 2, but that's typically what I use, is always 2. And then the Z height will be 8, just like it was at the bottom. Okay. And then the same thing here. We're going to grab this piece and shift click this piece. We'll weld those two together, and then we'll just call this upper white. And that's going to be 2 and 8. I'm doing this a little bit differently than I previously did. Sometimes what I'll do is I will just go through and name all my parts, and then I'll come back and do my extrusions. Because I then could set the extrusions for multiple pieces at one time. If I know all of these pieces, even though they're different colors, different locations in the design, if they're all going to be 2 and 8, I could enter in all the extrusions and Z heights at one time. But now I'm kind of doing a little bit differently in this example, where I'm doing it bit by bit by bit. So that's why you need to watch lots of examples. So we have some different ways of doing things. Now let's look at the old tiger head here, and let's go ahead and turn on the back plate, because I want to emphasize this point. We could see that the tiger head here is sitting on top of black. All right, so that's the first takeaway. So this piece here is going to be, grab the wrong piece, but our white back plate here, you see it's just one solid piece. So let's go ahead and name it. So we're going to do tiger backplate, just to help differentiate it. It's sitting on top of black, so it's going to be 2 and 8. Okay, so we'll go ahead and apply that. And yes, I'm going to turn it off just so we could see this a little bit better. And we'll go ahead and turn off our backplate, our main backplate too. Grab the wrong one here. Okay, so now sitting on top of our white backplate, we have red. Let's look at this red piece. Okay. So you see the red is not sitting on top of black, is it? Now, this is the next takeaway here. So I'm going to say that the next piece is the black tiger. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's just call it black tiger. I'll know what that means. And what should that be? Well, that should be 2 and 9. Because we already know the back plate was 2 and 8. Okay. So that's going to be 2 and 9. Now, sitting on top of the black for our tiger, we have this piece of white that's sitting on top of black. And then what else do we have? We have this is not sitting on top. You see that? It's not sitting on top. This here. Let me grab the white part if I can. So that is not sitting on top of black either. That one is. You see? So you have to kind of be a little bit careful of what is actually sitting on top of what here. So I think what I really want, let's just keep investigating here and see what's happening here and trying to understand why exactly this is the way it is. So that piece, this white, is not sitting on black. This is sitting on black. How about our teeth? Our teeth are sitting on black. And our nose is separate and it's not sitting on top of black. So this is going to be a little bit confusing. So here's what I want to do. I want all of my white sitting on top of black. I don't want half and half here. So we're just going to go ahead and edit the black here. So let's do that. So this is where our Inkscape skills come in, understanding what we want and how to achieve what we're wanting to achieve. If we take a look at the black, let's take a look. Let's just duplicate it. And I want to show it to you kind of off screen here, just so you can have a better understanding of what's happening here. On this particular example here, you see where we have this opening here, and then we have all of this going on. That's why we're getting the result that we're getting. Is because this is not connected right here. Okay, that's what's causing our white not to be sitting on top of black. So I'm going to delete that. So these are the kinds of things that you have to kind of like train your brain for and look for. Why is, because, you know, just looking at it, if this piece here is sitting on top of black, just looking at it, you're like, well, why is this not sitting on top of black? It looks like it should be. The same thing here with our nose. Our nose looks like it should be sitting on top of black. Why isn't it? Well, so this is, like I said, this is just something we have to kind of train our brain for. But right here, we can close this off, and then we can very easily convert this black the way we need it to be converted. So let's just go ahead and turn off these two for right now. Let's go ahead and turn those off, just so we could see this connection right here. So all we're going to do here is we're going to grab our pen tool, and we're just going to whack it, just make a little shape here. So from that point to that point, we can come way up here if we want to. Let's see here. What do we want to do? Let's come here, 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 there. Okay. Now we have a stroke here. So we're going to shift click our red X, and then let's just give it a fill color. Doesn't really matter what fill color, but we'll use black for this example. Now you see, we don't see a fill color here. And I don't know why Inkscape suddenly started doing this to me, but it drives me bananas. And it drove me crazy for the longest time. It's like, why don't we see this? Well, this happens, and I can't explain why, but if you go over here to stroke and fill, and right here under fill, you see the alpha channel? That needs to come all the way over. So there's these little handles, so that should be at 100. And now you can see we have our fill back. So we select that piece and our black tiger here. Okay. And so those are both selected. Now we'll go back over here and merge those two together. Okay, so now those are one. Okay, so you see that? They're all one now. Now, because that is closed, all of this on the inside, we could very easily get rid of. So what we're going to do here is we're going to right click here on break apart. You see what happened? And then we can go ahead and union these back together again. Okay. So that may have seemed like a lot of work, but you know what? It really isn't once you understand like what's happening and why. So if we turn that back on, there's our red. And then is this our white? What we could do is we could just go to outline mode. No, we can't either. We can't see that white. Let's find our white piece here. That is our lower red. I thought it would be this. And it probably is that, but we have to look at it in outline mode, indeed. So let's go ahead and raise it to the top. And then we have what we expect. So now if we look at this, this white is totally sitting on top of black. Our nose is sitting on top of black. Our eye here is sitting on top of black. Now we do have one more piece, that little dot we don't need. If we go to outline mode here again, the brow, we need to bring that brow to the front. So that piece right there. Let's see. Let's go ahead and bring that to the front and see what that looks like. Nope. What do we got there? Let's find out what we've actually got here. Now we have that black piece that we don't need, but we need that piece right there. So we'll go back. There we go. So now all of our white bits are sitting on top of black. So again, we'll select all of those by right clicking on this icon. We'll select all of our, we could have red and white and whatever other color, but we select that, and now that will filter out just so we have all of our white bits. And if we want to toggle those on and off, so looks like this could be a different white is probably what it's showing us there, and it looks to be actually a little bit different color RGB. So we'll go ahead and shift click that to add that to the selection, and then we can left click the eye to turn it off, and then right click the eye to turn it on. That's how we toggle those on and off. Now we know we have what selected we needed selected. So we'll go ahead and bring all that together, and let's call it white tiger. And let's go ahead and extrude it to 2. And now we have to think about how this all works again. So we have our tiger back plate here, which is at 2 and 8, the white. The black here, our tiger black, is 2 and 9. So our tiger white on top of that should be 10. And we'll see how this all works when we actually create the model. So same thing here. All of our red bits here, now those can, well, let's see here. Can all those be 1? No, they can't, because we have some red bits that are on top of red and some that are not on top of red, are black, I mean. So this piece is not on top of black. So it's going to be at a different Z height than these pieces. So that's something we got to think about. And our tongue is sitting on top of black. So we're good to go there. So let's go ahead and select those two parts, bring those together, and we'll go ahead and name those upper red tiger. And those are going to be at 2. And those should be at the same elevation as white, because all of our white was sitting on top of black here too. So we'll do those at 10. Now back over here on this piece, this is our tiger black. Okay. Now we have this piece that we no longer need for our tiger black, and then also this piece. Let's see, there was one more piece. Let me look here. Where did I see that? Yes, that piece right there we don't need. So let's get rid of that piece too. So now we just have tiger black here. So we're going to do tiger black. And that is going to be 2 and 9. All right. And then finally, for the tiger portion anyhow, we're going to do tiger lower red. And that will be at 2. And that's sitting on top of our back plate. So that is going to be 2 and 9 as well. All right. So now all of our tiger bits and bobs have all been defined. So we can select our white and we'll turn it off. We could select this red and turn it off. And then we'll select this red and turn it off. And then finally the tiger here, and we could turn it off. Okay. So now there's some remnants here. So we can go ahead and delete that. Now the black here on this Braswell, I'm going to go ahead and delete that because I don't really like that. I think it'll look better if we just have the white. So we're going to go ahead and right click here. This is a good example of where that selection tool comes into play, because we can just select all of our black bits and delete those. Just hit our delete key. And so that takes care of all of those. Now these lower reds here, let's go ahead and bring those together. And let's go ahead and turn on our back plate here. Yes, those are sitting on top of black. Let me look here. Those can be combined. Let's turn on lower red. Yes, those should have been part of lower red. So we'll go ahead and select both of those. And we'll go ahead and merge those two together. And let's just go ahead and rename that lower red. And those will be at 2 and 8. So there we go. So that's all part of that. Okay, now we have our green here, we have our red, and then we have our text. Now this is where things get a little bit tricky here, because we are going to be doing something kind of special here. So the first thing I want to do is I want to select all of my white letters. So let's get that out of the way. So we're going to right click here and make a selection and go ahead and left click on this. That will leave us with just our white lettering selected. But remember, we have those red bits on top of our white lettering. I kind of forgot about that. So let's go ahead and take care of that also. So we're going to select that, and let's do this. Let's right click. We were on the right track. Let's go ahead and left click. That will just give us our letters, and then we'll merge those together. And then we will take those 3 red bits and shift click our white lettering, and then we can click on this button, and it'll take care of punching a hole where we need a holes punched. So let's look at that. So see, those holes have now all been punched. So we'll just call this simply text. I'm not going to worry about the extrusion and Z height just yet, because I want to get this all figured out here. So this green is actually going to be black. So let's go ahead and change it to black. This is going to be a little bit confusing, maybe. Well, let's turn off our backplate. Maybe it'll be less confusing this way. So we have our black, we have red, and then we have our text. Okay. Now we have to look at the rest of our design and figure out where we want this piece to be. So let's just go ahead, for simplicity's sake, let's turn it all on so we can look at the design as a whole and we can make some sense of this. So what is going to be our tallest piece? Do we know what our tallest piece is? It's the tiger head. The tiger head is our tallest piece, right? Because it has the most layers. But what I'm primarily interested in is we've got our back plate and then these two pieces right here that are sitting on top of the back plate. That's what I'm primarily interested in. So in this example, our back plate is 8 and these two are 2. But the actual finished size will be 9. Now we're going to see this when we go in to make our model. So I know this part is a little bit confusing, but just bear with me here and just understand my basic logic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that this piece is going to be 12. So let's go ahead and do it. So let's just call it black ribbon. And it is going to be extruded 12. And so the Z height, because I want this to start on the build plate, the Z height is going to be half of 12, which is going to be 6. Okay. So then we have our red fill. So we'll call it ribbon red fill. It's going to be 2. And it is going to be 12. Okay. 12 Z height here. Okay. So what that means is, because this plate is 12 and we set the Z height for this at 12, what that means is, because this is 2 millimeters thick, it's going to sit above the ribbon, actually only 1 millimeter. Just like this sits above 1 millimeter, the red sits above 1 millimeter, the football sits 1 millimeter above the red. You see the pattern? It's over and over and over again. So once you kind of get that pattern to be the same thing over and over and over again, hopefully it'll start clicking and make more sense. But in the beginning, it's very, very complicated. I totally understand it. Okay, so then, so if our red is at 12, then what would our white be? It would be at 13, right? To follow along our system here. So let's go ahead and do it. So we'll call this Braswell. And it is going to be only 2, just like everything else, but it's going to be at 13. Now, it doesn't have to be 2. You know, we could make it 3 or 4 or whatever we wanted to, but I just kind of keep the same system going, and you'll see that this will print out real nice. It'll look real nice when we get done here. So you'll see all this come to life here in just a second. So then the only other thing that we have to do is we have to decide, anytime that I'm looking at a design, I'm thinking to myself, what could we do to make it a little bit extra? And so I'm always thinking that. So if you remember from our last class, when we were doing the Miami design for Audrey, right? We did that round circle medallion behind the mascot, but we made the mascot look like he was kind of stepping out of that circle background, and then we added a little border, just little tiny details just to make it just a little bit more interesting. So that's what we're going to do here, but it's going to take us a little bit more work to do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our red ribbon and shift click the black here, and we're going to duplicate those. So Control D. And then we just click on this button right here to do a difference command. And I'll show you what that did, because it's not evident here. But you see what it did? It created this ribbon. And so now that we have this ribbon, we can make it stick up above this red fill. And I just like the way that looks. I think it looks interesting. So let's see here. So that's our ribbon. Yes, but then let's Let's see, what did I just do here? I did something I shouldn't have, I think. Yes, okay, there it is. So this is not our ribbon. This is going to be our ribbon ring, and it's going to be extruded too. And the Z height is going to be what? Well, the Z height in this case is going to be 13. Now, how did I get there? The ribbon is 12, and this ring is 2 millimeters. Half of 2 is 1. 1 plus 12 is 13. That's where I got there. Okay. So that's how I came up with 13. So let's go ahead and hit apply. And now our design is done. In real life, like if I was sitting down and doing this and just, step by step, just going in and knocking it out, probably like 30 minutes, probably, because it is somewhat of a complicated design. So let's just go ahead and do Braswell hype here. And we'll save. And then let's go ahead and resize this to our finished dimension, which is 150 millimeters. What I usually do. Okay. So there we go. We'll go ahead and save this again. Now, if we look here in our list of parts, there's this piece right here, and doesn't look like it's really anything, so we can delete it. But everything else has an extrusion value. Everything else has a name. Everything else has a Z height. So now we are ready to make our 3D model. So let's go ahead and test her out. We'll go ahead and we will save this again, but then we'll go ahead and create our model. The first time when we first open the software and we run this tool the first time, it takes a little bit extra time to initiate the tool, but then from then on out, it processes our designs much quicker. So that's why this one's taken a little extra time. So there we go. So our model is made. Now, the proof is in the pudding when we go to look at it to see what in the world we created here. So let's take a look. We'll go ahead and file and open. And we are looking for Braswell hype. There we go. And that's what we got. So that's the main thing that we were after. It's just that little extra right there, right? You see that? And remember, we created that ring. So we have that 1 millimeter. That's what we just wanted that little extra zhuzh. And you can see here that all these pieces are sitting on top of black. And of course, our tiger is sitting on top of black there. But that centerpiece has got a little bit more pronounced there. So that is kind of what the finished product looks like here. So we're going to go ahead and save this. And then we'll actually turn it into a 3D model here. Now you'll notice here that in this particular case, and I'm not quite sure why it did this, but you see here there's 2 whites. And that will sometimes happen if the RGB color in our design is not exactly the same. That's what it's telling us here. So you can see here that color slot 2 and 4 are both white, but they're not exactly white. Obviously, they're not exactly the same RGB color. So if we look here, you see these are all 2s. That's a 2. There's a 4 here. White tiger, for some reason, is not 2. So if we make it 2, now you see that we just have 3 colors. Not a big deal. So that's what we want. Okay. So now that we've done that, now we can go ahead and actually make the hype chain itself. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to go ahead and right click here on Generate 3MF, and we're going to click on Create Height Chain, and we're going to go ahead and browse to the Braswell height. So let's find that. There it is. And we'll go ahead and open that up. And in this case, we are going to generate the whole kit and caboodle. So we're going to do the Cuban, the standard, and the keychain, all of them. And let's go ahead and have the software automatically calculate how many keychains will fit on an entire build plate. So you can see here in the instructions down below, it's going to create us 9 keychains because that's how many will fit on a single build plate. So then we'll go ahead and create those. And it just confirms that, yes, indeed, we did create it. Okay, so that part happens very quickly. So now let's go ahead and open up what it created for us. And it's this right here. So we have our Cuban setup here. Now we have to slide that out of the way. But there's our Cuban setup. And then here we have our regular setup. And notice we have and then these links are for the regular hype chain. And then we also have all of our keychains selected here. And this is going to be conflicting with the prime tower. So we have to delete that one. So we have room for the prime tower. And so there we go. So that is all ready to go for us. Let's just take a look at the keychains themselves because we shrunk that down fairly considerably. So let's see if those are going to print nice. I want to see what profile we're using. So we're using the standard profile. I like to use my cap plate profile when we're doing keychains. And what's different about that? Well, it's mainly under the quality tab. These settings right here. The outer wall is at 0.25. The inner wall is at 0.25. And top interface is at 0.25. Those are the main things. And then if we scroll down here, you see under wall generator, we have it set to Arachne. Sometimes Arachne is really good, and other times classic may be better. Those are the only 2 options though. What I'm concerned mostly about is this word football. It's very, very tiny. Okay. So we're going to see if that will print. So let's go ahead and slice it up and see if it'll print. If it looks good here in your slicer and your printer is doing its job, then your printer will more or less print it just the way you see it here in the slicer. But I'll promise you one thing. If it doesn't look good in your slicer, it definitely will not print with beans. So don't just send it because it will not print very good. All right, so let's go ahead and turn off our seams, those little white specks. Sometimes they get in our way. Look at there. So I anticipate football to print just fine. So I don't foresee that being an issue. Nothing really stands out to me. You see right here what I was talking about, these little fine points right there. Your nozzle is not going to be able to get in there. Okay, so that's why you see those little specks. Now, we can look and see if switching to classic does anything for those. Generally speaking, Arachne is supposed to be better for those fine points, but let's go ahead and slice the plate and just look at it again. See if one does look better than the other. Not really. Not much difference there. You still see those little specks. Football still looks okay. So if there's not really one, I don't really see any one being better than the other. So we'll just go back to the standard and set that to Arachne. So you may want to set up a custom print profile, and we change the wall generator to Arachne, right? And then up here on the line width under quality tab, 0.25 for outer, inner, and top surface. And then when you do that, then you could just click that little button right there, and save it as a custom profile. And then you could, in my case, I call it cap plates, but you can call it whatever you want. So you could call it keychains, for example, and then always use that profile when you're doing keychains. But I suspect that this will all print out just fine. And, this is really, really tiny, those little dots. So when you actually print this keychain out, you probably won't even notice those. But I'll go ahead and save this. But you can see how the toolkit will really cut down on time, not only creating the model, but also, doing layouts like this where we do the same thing over and over and over again. When I do hype chains for customers, I give them this standard layout here. So, but yeah, when you're in, we can pick and choose. For example, we can pick and choose what parts of that layout that we want. So if we just want to do keychains, or we just want the standard, or we just want the Cuban, we can only generate what it is we actually want to generate there. All right. What's time looking like? Okay. Tina, you have a question?
So I know that you just now dropped the automation, and I know most of us have questions as far as downloading it, setting it up. Are you going to touch bases on those steps? Because I know that's the majority of the reasons why we tuned in, is trying to see exactly how to place it on our computers and how to work the software, like a hands-on. Are you going to do one of those samples with us today?
Well, yes and no. We're fixing to get into Blender here a little bit. The toolkit. So for those of you who may not have been here right at the very top of class, I had planned on releasing the toolkit tomorrow. But I didn't realize this week was back to school for us. So I had a lot of honeydews for back to school, buying shoes and clothes and all this stuff. And so it distracted me all week. So I wasn't able to finish what I needed to finish for tomorrow's release. So I think what I'm going to do is just go ahead and wait till next Friday. And what we'll do is next Thursday, we're going to, whatever tools are added between now and then, we'll have a more in-depth, how to install it, how to register it, how to enter your security keys, and all that stuff. We'll walk you through step by step everything next Thursday. Now, we may also cover that a little bit at next Monday's class too. And who knows, if you guys send me lots of messages and tell me I don't want to wait till Friday, maybe if it's ready to go before Friday, I'll just go ahead and release it. And I will have, demonstration videos on installing it and how to register it and all that stuff before I release it, so you guys won't be confused about that. I don't know, Tina, if you specifically asked about it, but a lot of people were asking about how to install the version for Blender. And we are going to cover that, installing the Blender version tonight. And we're going to show you how to use that Blender version of the toolkit, so you can make some things in Blender in the meantime. So we will walk through that process.
Thank you so much.
So with that said, let's get into Blender. Now, Blender, if Inkscape is a scary program to you, Blender will surely be a scary program. And Blender was a scary program and is a scary program to me. I'm certainly no Blender expert, but I can hack my way through. And here's the challenging thing for us. Most of the things that we want to make, we don't actually need to use Blender. So we don't use Blender. We only use Blender for the things we actually need it for. So, like Jules hype chain and stuff, we wouldn't use Blender for that. It'd be, I mean, you could, but it would be way overcomplicating the process. So, so anyhow, it's about using the right tool for the right job. And so I thought, well, I'm going to show you some things here in Blender that I think will be interesting for you. Now, last week, our last class, which would have been Monday night, I posted the toolkit for Blender, and some of you have installed it. Jules said Jules using a Mac, she installed it successfully on her Mac. So Blender is totally free. If you're not aware of Blender, it's totally free. You go to blender.org and you can download the Windows version or the Mac version. They don't have a tablet version or anything like that. And so I set off because I realized that most of you aren't going to know anything about Blender and are still struggling with Inkscape. So I set out to create a series of tools that will allow us to create certain things, but in a very automated way where we don't have to know much about Blender. So I'm going to show you my version that has greatly been enhanced since my release last Monday. But that was what I was talking about earlier with the Inkscape toolkit, is I didn't want to release it and then turn around and release another one and then another one and another one. I'd rather hold off a week, get it to have those couple little tweaks that I want to do to it, and then release it, and then not release an update for 60 days or something, So let me show you my Blender version. And so this is what my toolkit looks like. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through mine just real quickly, generically, and then I'm going to back up and we're going to work with the toolkit that all of you should already have access to, who are Patreon members. So in order to get the toolkit, you do have to be a Patreon member on the baddie tier. This was posted on Monday, but you could see mine has a lot more tools and functions. We have a tool down here. It's called Auto Revolve. So you know how in Inkscape, yes, Dee, I will walk you through the install. We're going to do that here in just a second. Just like in Inkscape, the toolkit in Inkscape, we right click on that generate 3MF file, and we can go into our project builder in the toolkit for Inkscape. Well, we have this project builder here in Blender also. This auto revolve tool, we can't do the things that this tool can do. We can't do them in Inkscape. So that's why we need Blender. And the reason I chose Blender was for a couple of reasons. The biggest one, it's free. Anyone who wants it can have it. Works on a Mac and a PC, so that's a plus. But Blender's totally free. Fusion and plasticity and all these other actual true 3D modeling softwares, they all cost money. Even though everyone says, well, no, Fusion is free. No, Fusion technically is not free. Fusion is free as long as you're not using it commercially. Then yes, Fusion is free. Or if you're a student or something like that, Fusion is free. But if we want to be totally legit, Fusion is not technically free. Blender is totally free. So whatever we create in Blender, we can either sell the files or sell the prints, and we're good to go. But in Fusion, it's not technically free. And it's actually kind of expensive. Like if you were going to pay for it, I think it's like, I don't know, $300 or something like that. I don't know. It's kind of expensive. But at any rate, Blender's free, and it will do, a lot of crazy things. And it allows us to program things. So we don't have to do all the individual steps. We could just tell it, hey, do this step, then this step, then this step. And it'll just do it automatically. So anyhow, so let's take a look at what Auto Revolve does. And then we're going to back up here a couple of steps. I'll show you how to install it. And then we're going to go back into Inkscape because we're still using Inkscape to feed Blender. We need SVG files. So we're going to feed Blender with Inkscape still, but then we're going to take those SVG files and do magic with them. So if I click on Auto Revolve here, we're going to go ahead and click on Browse. And we're going to come down here and let's pick a file here. Let's start off with our vase file. So we'll go ahead and click on choose SVG profile. Now we have to wait a second. We have to wait till that field is processed. Sometimes it happens really quick, just like it just did, and sometimes it might take a second. The software is reading this SVG file to understand what it actually is, and then it will determine what it should do with the SVG file, what options it should give us. So for this particular one, you see here it says this is for our vase. And for cat mode, we are just going to go to auto for this particular example. We don't need to do anything with caps. So there we go. And then we're just going to go ahead. Now, for the thickness of my vase, I set my wall thickness to 3 millimeters. You could set your wall thickness to whatever you want, but I feel like 2 is a little flimsy and 3 is just perfect. But we can enter whatever value you want for the wall thickness of your vase. And then when we click OK, ta-da, our vase. So you see it's hollow. And that's it. That's all there is to it. So you can see that's very nice. Just a one-click wonder tool. And then here we can click on export the 3MF file. So we click on export here and it brings up our export window. And let's just call it class vase. I've got 1,000 of them on my desktop. So we'll go ahead and export that 3MF file here. And then we'll go into Bamboo and let's import the vase. So Control I, and we're looking for class vase here. So we can, there it is, right there, class vase. Now it's always going to give you this warning, okay? So we always just click yes. And so there's our vase. That's how it works. So you see, very, very simple. We don't have to know really much of anything about Blender for this particular example. And that's where we're at. You know, we want to just baby steps, start with something small and easy. Okay, so let's go back into Blender here. And we'll select that and delete it. And then we'll take a look at what other products we can create with the auto revolve. And there's all kinds of different things that we can do. But I created kind of 3 different setups here just to give you an example. So now we'll go back to auto revolve. And we're going to click browse. And this time we are going to do a lamp shade. So we'll choose lamp test here. So now you can see there it is. So for cap mode for the lamp vase, we're going to switch it to no bottom cap. Okay. And that's generally what we want to do when we're dealing with lamp shades. Again, we could set the thickness of our lampshade to be whatever we want. In my case, we'll do 3 millimeters. If you wanted the light to shine through, kind of like a lithophane lamp, then you might want to back that off, you know, to maybe 1.5 or 2. But we can go ahead and click OK. And so there you go. There's our lampshade. And what we're going to do is we're going to show you what we need to create in Inkscape in order to be able to utilize this auto revolve tool and make these kinds of things, which is, you know, just that quick and easy. Yeah, Tina, did you have a question?
So, like, if I made a litho shade lamp, how would I be able to put my images on there in the litho maker or whatever? I'm just, because now you got my mind going when you say litho maker.
Well, okay. So when we're talking about the lithophane, that's a totally different process. So we wouldn't. So if we want to create a lithophane lampshade, we would use one of the lithophane makers. Now, at some point, we may have that built into the Inkscape toolkit, where we could create all of our lithophane lampshades right inside the toolkit. I mean, that is something I do plan to add. So it would just all be contained within Inkscape. But for this, what we're doing is we're just creating lampshades that we're going to print, not necessarily a lithophane lampshade. Now, we didn't get into it yet, but in a future class, we're going to, where we could take lampshades that we create here, and instead of lithophanes, something that I actually think is even cooler than lithophanes, and that is to create your lampshade, print your lampshade, but only have the wall thickness like 1.5 millimeters or so, like you would for a lithophane, right? But instead of using lithophane, we would use sticker paper, clear, transparent sticker paper, and we would print our images on this clear paper, and then we could stick it to our lampshade like a sticker. But then when we flip the light on, it's going to show through our lampshade, through our clear, transparent sticker paper, and light up our colored images. And it looks really pretty. And of course, with the image being full color, even when you don't have the lamp on, you could still see the image. So, just a totally different application, but just another option. But it's really something that you almost have to try it and see, what it does exactly. So you could see, like, do you like that effect? Do you not like that effect? But it is pretty striking to see the colored images. So that's coming. But anyhow, we can very quickly and easily generate lampshades as well with this auto revolve tool. And I'm going to show you how to do this. So you don't have auto revolve right now, but I'm going to show you how to do this in the toolkit that you do have. So fear not. Okay. It's not going to be a one-click wonder like this, but it's going to be close to that. It's not hard. So if you want to start generating some of this stuff, you'll be able to do it with what you already got. All right. So we're going to go ahead and delete that. And we'll look at one more test case here. So we'll go into auto revolve here and let's find it here. Our candle test. Okay. You can see it's taking a little bit of time for this one. Now for the cap, we're going to do auto cap, and we're going to go ahead and hit OK. And so you can see that's what that creates there. And again, we could just export. And I know most of you probably aren't really using Inkscape or Blender right now, but I want to give you an example of just things to be thinking about, because I feel like the toolkit for Inkscape and Blender here too, but most of you are using Inkscape. Think about, as you're, doing your design work, is there something you're doing over and over and over again, and you want a tool for it? That's how we can improve these two different toolkits. So I want to show you how the native way of importing an SVG file into Blender is, and then show you an example of automation. So in order for us to import an SVG file into Blender, what we would have to do is we have to click on File. That's one click. And then we have to come to Import. And then we have to slide our mouse over and down to actually choose the SVG as curves. And then we get the dialog box. So every time, File, Import. Oh, there it is, right? File. And I was doing that over and over and over again. And I didn't want to do that. So I feel like in Blender, I feel like we should have a shortcut key like we do in every single other program on the planet. Microsoft Word, Corel Draw, Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, doesn't matter what it is. Bamboo Studio, Silhouette Studio, they're all the same. To open an image is Control-I. It's Control-I for everything else, but not Blender. Blender doesn't have a control I to. There's no shortcut key to open an SVG file in Blender. And it drives me absolutely batty. So what we did is we created a tool where we click on one click. Boom. See how much easier that is? We don't have to move our mouse. We just click. Now, I do have a keyboard shortcut for that too, which is Control Alt I. It does the same thing because we should have keyboard shortcuts. I have keyboard shortcuts to all these tools, but so much easier, so much quicker. And for somebody like me who sits and designs every day, all day, I'm just looking for quick, easy solutions. So anyhow, that's just one little thing that your version of the toolkit doesn't have that. It's something new. I just got tired of doing it and said, no, I gotta fix that problem. So anyhow, but I want to show you how to install the toolkit you do have, and then also how to create those products that we just did. Okay, so I'm going to back up a second. Let's go into Inkscape and show you how to make those profiles first, because it's super, super easy. And then we'll come back into Blender, we'll install it, and we'll use it. Okay, so let's do that real quick. So we'll hit File, New. And if we go back out here to our chat, so if you're a Patreon member, you have access to the chats, right? Just real quick, let me show you this while we're here. Just another example of anything that we see. We can more or less convert it into a design. So somebody posted this on one of the Facebook groups and said, hey, I wanted this to say bowling mom. And so you can see, I need some artwork similar to the reference image, very, very similar to the reference image, except I need it to say bowling mom. And then where the baseball is in mom, I need that to be a bowling ball. There you go. Okay, now you guys have seen, the conversion process, right? And then somebody, when I posted that design, somebody asked for a bowling queen design. And so you can see here, it says, all right, Chad, I need a similar design, but instead of bowling mom, I need to say bowling queen, and then move the bowling ball towards the front of the text. So the ball will be at the front, but it'll say bowling queen. And so it gives me this. Can we try adding a little princess crown on top of the bowling ball? It added a little king crown. I said, no, that looks like a crown for a king. We need for a princess, not a crown for a king. And so it gave me that. So you see? We just kind of worked through it and got basically exactly what we needed. And that's how I made the keychain, and it's posted to the Patreon for download. But and then when I posted it to the Patreon, then I had people saying, well, can we do one for soccer mom and this and that and the other? There were several different ones that were requested, but that's why we give you the chat. You can make whatever design you want. So yeah, pretty useful stuff. Okay, so yeah, I just thought that was an interesting one. That's why I posted it. But let's start here with this chat here. So your class files will have this image, so you'll be able to do this. But you could see here, I said I need 5 examples, really simple examples of a silhouette of a vase, 5 different styles, different widths, heights, and profiles of a flower vase. Do you see? Simple black and white image. So let's go ahead and select that. Let's right click on it. Let's go ahead and copy the image and then come into Inkscape here. And when we're working with the toolkit here, this is one thing that I want to fix, but will not be fixed by Friday. I can promise you that. But there's one limitation to the toolkit as it sits right now. We can only have one instance of Inkscape open at a time. Now, for most of us, that's probably not a big deal. But there's certain things in the toolkit that if we have more than one instance of Inkscape open, it goes crazy. Now, I will eventually fix those little bugs. But for right now, I don't have time. So anyhow, just keep that in mind. So we're going to go ahead and paste that image. So right click and paste, and then right click, and we're going to trace it. And then we're going to hit apply. And then now we have a vector version of all this stuff. Okay. So now we're going to break it apart. So let's do that. So we're going to right click here and break it apart. And so now we have individual pieces. Now, because there's only 5, I'm just going to go ahead and do all of them for you. So once you see the process, repeated over and over and over again, then you should know exactly what to do with whatever it is you want to make. So for this example, we're going to make all 5 of these bases. So we'll start with this one. First thing we're going to do is make sure it has a totally flat bottom. So we just draw a rectangle, shift click our vase, and choose this, and we'll difference it so that whoosh, totally flat. Then we're going to grab a rectangle, and you see that red line that appears? That's dead center of our vase, and that's what we want. So we're going to have our rectangle, shift click our vase, and whack it. Just like that. Okay. Now, we're going to double click here. That will go into our node tool. And up top here, we're going to click that node right there. And we're going to click right here. You see, this is join nodes, and this is break path at nodes. We click that button. You can also use Shift B, and that will break it too. Okay, so when I click on that node now, you see what we get? That's this node here. And then this is this one over here. And then there's actually several. So we're going to delete those, all of them, just like so. Now, I don't actually want this fill, so let's get rid of the fill. And we're going to shift click any one of these colors. And there we go. That's our profile. That's what we want, okay? Now, Blender is a little bit finicky. It doesn't like SVG files with hidden objects. So once we've created this profile, how tall is this? This is only 98. Let's make this bigger. Let's maybe make it, how tall do we want our vase to be? 200, 8 inches? All right, perfect. We'll make an 8-inch base out of this one. So, so what we're going to do here is we're going to hit File, New, and we're going to go ahead. We're not using the toolkit, so at the moment for this, actually, we can minimize that entirely because we're not going to use the toolkit for what we're doing here. So you can have more than one instance of Inkscape open. But what we have to do is take this profile and then go ahead and copy it into its own separate file here. And then just we'll hit File, Save As. We're going to go to the desktop and we'll call it Vase 01. Actually, let's go into our class files. Let's dump it right there. So we're just going to call it Vase 01. Okay. Now, the main thing here is you see this leg at the bottom. We don't have a leg at top. So the bottom of our vase obviously is going to be capped off where the top of our vase isn't. Okay. So Vase 01. So that's taken care of. So we could just go ahead and close this out now. And we could delete that. And we're moving on. Let's do this one. So we're going to just grab a rectangle. Again, shift click the red X here to get rid of our stroke. And then we'll give it a fill. And then we can move this up just a little bit here. Maybe something like that. And we're going to shift click here. And let's just do path and difference. We won't even use the toolkit for this. Okay, so there you go. And then we're going to grab our rectangle tool again. We'll grab a rectangle and we're going to move this. Watch for that red line to appear. Should appear. That vertical red line should appear. There it is. And then we're going to go ahead and just drag this out. Shift click our vase, path and difference. Now, do you remember what we're doing here? We're going to double click. That will take us into the node tool. We're going to select that node right up top. We're going to hit Shift B. That breaks those apart. Then we could just hit the delete key and select those again and hit the delete key. And then we're going to have no fill. So the red X here, left click, And then we have to shift click to add a stroke. Okay. Now we need that bottom one, but this top one we don't need. So we're going to just delete that one more segment back. And you'll see how this all works here when we actually generate these bases. So now we're going to go ahead and Control C that to copy it. And we'll go into a new file here and paste it, Control V. And then how tall is this one? Let's make this one 150. That'll be a 6-inch base. Okay. So we'll hit File and Save As, and we'll call it Vase 02. Okay. And we can close that, and we can delete that. Moving on. Rectangle. Left click. So there's no, or shift click rather, so there's no outline. And then we'll give it a fill here. We'll move it up a little bit. Something like that. Shift click our vase, path and difference. Rectangle again. See that vertical red line that appears? That's center. Shift click the vase, path and difference. Double click. We're going to grab those nodes, Shift B, B as in boy, and then let's delete those. And delete those. Give it no fill. But we need to shift click to add an outline. And then we're just going to bring this back. So you see right here, there's no node over here. So we're just going to make a node right about, maybe right about there, and pull that back to there. So the top of our vase is going to have just a little bit of a lip. Okay. So then how tall do we want this? Yep. Let's make it 6 inches. We'll do that. A little bud vase here. So we're going to hit File New. We're going to copy this, Control C, into our new document, Control V. We'll do File, Save. And it's going to be a Vase 03. We'll close that out. So we got 2 more here. So our rectangle tool, shift click to get rid of our stroke. We'll give it a fill with left clicking. Then we're going to move it up a little bit so it has a nice flat bottom. Like so. Shift click, path and difference. Rectangle. That vertical red line shows us dead center. Shift click, path and difference. Double click. Grab those nodes. Shift B to break them apart. We'll delete them. We'll delete them. No fill. Shift click. Give it an outline. So you see how that's going to have a little bit of a lip to it as well. So then we will copy this. File New. And we can paste it. And how tall is this? Yeah, that's good. We'll make a little short squatty one, or like a little plant or something. So we'll do 100. So then we'll hit File. So that 100 is 4 inches. So we'll do File, Save As. And we're going to do Vase 04. And close that out. And we'll close this out. We'll just delete that. And then we've got this one. One more to go here. So we're going to grab that, shift click to get rid of our stroke, give it a fill. That's pretty good. So nice flat bottom. So we'll go path and difference. Let's grab our rectangle tool, make a rectangle. Going to snap right to the center there. Shift click, path and difference. Double click. We will select that node. Shift B, delete. Click on that node, delete. And then, yeah, we can go ahead and delete on this one too. Okay, no fill. So left click and then shift click to give it a stroke. And there you go. Now we have a nice tall one. Let's go maybe max it out close to 240, make a nice tall one. And then we'll go ahead and save this. And it's going to be vase 05. Okay, so now you'll have all 5 of those profiles ready to go for you. All right. What do we want to do now? Let's go ahead and do file new. We're going to go ahead and close this one out. I just want to open that file. Something seems off to me. I want to just make sure that this one's right. We lost our 5th profile. And I'm not sure how or why, but it's definitely gone. So let me do this real quick. I'll fix it later. We'll go back in and add this one. I know which one we lost, so no big deal. All right, let's go back to our chats, and then let's take a look at this chat. Now, remember here on our chats, you have to click on the link. You can't click on the image. You got to click on the link. Well, let's go ahead and click on that. And so you can see that I asked it to essentially do the same thing. You can review this chat on your free time, but you can see it gave me this one, which is pretty good. So we have that one. We have these that are kind of interesting, but you see all the profiles are all similar, different heights, but they're all similar thicknesses. So this one here, I asked it to do, give me some variation, basically. So this is the one we're going to use. So we're going to right click and copy. And then we'll go back into Inkscape here. I accidentally closed it. I'm not sure why I did that. All right. So it's the same basic process as what we had done for the vases. So we're going to right click and paste. We're going to right click and trace bitmap. We're going to hit apply. So it's essentially the same process. Let's go ahead and path. We won't use our toolkit for this. We'll just do it the old Inkscape way. Path and break apart. And we're just going to do 2 of them. Let's do these 2. You get the idea. So same thing. Just drag out a rectangle. Shift click. And let's give it a fill. And nice flat bottom. Path and difference. And then same thing, rectangle, that vertical red line. We'll go ahead and cut it. Path and difference. And then we'll hit file new. We'll copy this. So Control C, then file new. So when we're doing candlesticks, we want to do them just as a whole here. So this one here is about 5 inches tall. Well, that's pretty good. So we'll just leave it like that. File, save as, and let's call it candle 01. Okay, we'll go ahead and close that out. And then we can delete that profile, and then we'll make this one. And so we will go ahead and rectangle like so. We'll whack it off here, path and difference. another rectangle, and path and difference. So now we have that profile. So we can go ahead and let's go ahead and just delete our image. Now Blender will ignore that anyhow. And you know what? Something I didn't think about, but it is important to note. Blender does not like fills. So when we're doing a solid shape like this, we don't want the fill. So let's go ahead and get left click here to get rid of the fill and then shift click just to have a profile like that. That's what Blender likes to see. So we'll go ahead and do that. And candle 02. So then let's fix candle 01. I forgot about that little detail. So we'll get rid of the fill here. And then just shift click and then resave it. So now we have the what Blender prefers. We can technically use it with fills. It just doesn't like it. So we'll get rid of it. All right. So now we have a pretty good understanding of how we can create our profiles. I do want to create one lampshade for you. So let's go ahead and delete that. And let's go ahead and we'll just create a new document here. We're going to just do a really simple lampshade. So we're just going to grab our pen tool and we're going to click here. And let's see, we'll click here and we'll click here. Let's see here. I'm totally making this up as I go. Okay, so you may not like this lampshade at all. But let's see here. So keep in mind with this shape, the way it is, the width of this is 63. So our lampshade is going to be twice that. So I want to maybe make this to be, I tell you what, let's make it 120. Okay. So that our finished lampshade will be 240, which will more or less fill our build plate. And then the height of our finished lamp here is going to be basically 5 inches. It's real close. So I'm going to unlock it and let's just go ahead and make it 125. And then let's see here. No, I wanted to do, let's lock. I was looking at the wrong thing here. So our width, we want it to be 120, which will give us a finished lampshade of 240. And then our height. So this is our height right here. So that 137 is basically 5.5 inches. So that's probably okay. Let's just maybe, let's just make it 6. We'll do 150. Okay. So that is our lampshade. So for our lampshade example. But you could do, all kinds of different profiles for lampshades. So let's see here. We'll call it lamp 01. And let's look at the profile of what that earlier one looked like. And maybe I'll show you real quickly how I created it. Just to kind of get your ideas flowing here. So let me find it here. This was the, no, that's our existing profile. Let me find it here. Lampshade test right here. Hopefully this will get your ideas flowing. So you see this? This was the profile that we created earlier when we did the test in Blender. So the way I created this profile might surprise you a little bit. But what we did is we just drew out a rectangle. And we're not going to do strokes. We're just going to use fills for right now. So I just drew out a rectangle. I set my width to 240 here. So let's go ahead and do that. 240. And then for the height, I did 50 inches, or 50 millimeters. And then I just grabbed a circle So in fact, I'm just going to go and come up here and grab a circle so we can see this. And then I just drag it down till you see it'll kind of lock into place there. And then I duplicated it and it'll snap right into place.
We can't hear you. Testing. Yep, I guess it's working again. I don't know what happened there. I got a new headset yesterday. And I questioned myself because I spent $400 on it. And I'm not sure I love it. Especially for $400, I'm not sure that I love it. All right, so you can see that we basically have our profile now, just like we did over here. So now what we're going to do is just go ahead and merge all this together. So path and union. And then we'll grab our rectangle tool and we're just going to whack it in half, just like we did with the candlestick, just like we did with our vase. So path and difference. Okay. And then just like we did before, we're double click. We're going to break this apart, Shift B. And then we can delete that, no fill, and shift click to give it a stroke. The thickness of the stroke doesn't matter. It just has to have a stroke. So there you go. So that is the profile for that lampshade. So let's go ahead and do File, Save As, and we'll just call it Lampo 2. So there you go. So that is just an idea of how you can create some different lampshade profiles and things. You could really go crazy, do all kinds of different things. And something else you might want to experiment with is not lampshades for lamps, right? But also lampshades for hanging pendants. You can get a pendant kit from, in fact, I'll show you. We come out here and let's go to Amazon real quick. And we'll just call it Hanging Pendant Kit. So you can get these pendant kits here, relatively inexpensive. If you have an IKEA by you, you can get them at IKEA. But you can get these kits relatively cheap, and you can make lampshades for hanging lamps, you know, for kids' bedrooms or something, and that could be super cute. Also, let's see here.
if I can spell this correctly. At least spell it good enough to get a result here. You can get these. These are little right here, especially these. But there's all kinds of different ones. But essentially, these little ones are candelabras. So you can see they're quite a bit cheaper, and you get they're only $6 for two in this particular example. That looks like a better deal. You get 6 of them for $14. But anyhow, if you want to get creative and make some little lampshades for like little kids' rooms or like a nursery would be really cute, you could really get creative with this. These little candelabras, they take like it's like almost like a little nightlight bulb. But you see these in the candelabra ones. You see those bulbs. They make brighter ones too. Like I think actually up to 60-watt bulbs. So they make super bright ones, but they use these a lot in chandeliers and things like that. But you'll have to look and see. But you can get pretty bright bulbs, or you can get real dim ones as well. But the cost, is minimal. It's not very much. And so you can make lampshades that would take these little candelabra sockets as well. You don't have to use the big, regular light bulb sockets. There's a 10-pack there for $14. That's pretty cheap. So anyhow, that's just kind of get some ideas going for you. So it's just something to think about. All right, so let's pop back over to Blender here, and let's get rid of my fancy toolkit. So we're going to go up here to Edit and Preferences. And right over here, down here, we got to get rid of this first. So let's uninstall it. And I'm going to install the one you guys have. So we open Blender. Real quickly, navigating in Blender, just so you know, if you don't already know, if we use our wheel mouse, we can scroll in and out. Okay, that's step one. If we push our wheel mouse, we can spin around. Okay, if we shift click and push our wheel mouse, we can pan. Okay, so that's how we get around. All right. Now, when you first start Blender, most of you, when you first start Blender, you're probably going to have what they call assets. You're going to have a camera and a light and a cube. Those are the default assets. Every brand new document has those. But if you hit the A key when you first open up your document and you hit the A key on your keyboard, it'll select all of those and then simply hit the delete key. Boom, they're gone from your scene. You never see them again. Okay. The other thing that you might want to do is over here on the right-hand side, you see where it says Scene Properties. You might want to click on that. That's that little cone-looking icon. And then down here under Length, Blender defaults to meters. But for us, for 3D printing, we want millimeters. Okay, so we under Length here, we just choose millimeters. All right. Now, once you've done those two things, you've gotten rid of all of your assets, and you've changed your unit values here, we can set that as a preset. So every time we create a new document, we don't have to delete those assets. We don't have to change it to millimeters. That will be the default forevermore. Okay. So if you come up here to File and under Defaults, you see here, Save Startup File. That will, when you click on that, that will automatically, you see here, Blender will start next time as it sits right now. So yes, we can overwrite that. Okay. So now every time we create a new document, we'll always be in millimeters, and we'll always have a clean scene. They call this a scene. So we'll always be set up that way. Okay. So now let's go ahead and open up the toolkit. Let's install the toolkit, and then we'll make a couple of models here. So let's do that. So we're going to come up here to Edit, and Preferences. And over here on the far right-hand side, we click that little icon right there, and you see it says Install from Disk. And so wherever you downloaded the file off of Patreon, wherever you put that file, I have mine on my desktop somewhere. This one right here, it'll say Toolkit Blender right here. And we'll just choose Install from Disk. And that's it. See? Pretty simple, right? So now we can go ahead and go in here and show you how to use these tools. Okay. So this is where it all began, right here. But then I perfected it a little bit. So we don't have our import SVG. So that's a bummer. So we got to do it the old Blender way. So let's just come up here to File, and we'll choose Import and come down here to SVG. And let's go to the desktop and let's find our class files from today. And what do we want to do? Let's go ahead and we'll make a candle. So we're going to import as curves. And this is what it looks like. Okay. So we're going to select that and we're going to rotate it. So that's why we have this option, rotate X90. Now just be thinking about this. The auto revolve tool, it's doing all these things for us. So there's a lot going on here. So we're going to click on rotate, step 1. Then this is a curve. What we're needing is a mesh. Okay. So that's where this tool comes into play, is convert to mesh. And now it's a mesh. You see the icon change. That is the mesh icon. All right. So now what we need to do in order to be able to do our spin, we need this to be at what Blender calls the world origin. So what we're going to do is we're going to tab into edit mode. So by default, we're in object mode. If we hit the tab key, now we're in edit mode. So now we're in edit mode here. Okay. And so now what we're going to do here is we're going to click right here, that vertex, and we're going to choose right here, vertex to world origin. And what it does is it moves the whole set of geometry over here to that center point there. Okay. And so now what we want to do is we want to select all of those nodes and we want to spin this. So if I click on spin, you can see what we get. Okay. So this is what we get. Now, here's the frustrating thing about Blender. This does not look like we want it to look. You see all these open areas here? This is actually a little bit of a bug in Blender, where it doesn't actually select all of our pieces. It's just a real, we selected all of those nodes, but it missed some. If we back up a couple of steps, so let's just hit Control Z and Control Z and one more time, and we zoom in here a little bit, we could see that where we had issues, some of those nodes, quite a few of them, see all those little black dots? Those were all nodes that were not part of the Revolve. Now we fixed that in our tool, but just know that sometimes we'll get very unexpected results, and that's kind of a bummer. So that was one thing that we addressed when we created the Revolve tool. Now, there's really no exact science on fixing it in Blender because it is so hit and miss. But there are things that we can do here. So let me just show you a couple of things here. So you see how we have all of these little black dots here? I'm going to go ahead and select those just like that. And let's go ahead and hit delete. And you see where it says limited dissolve? and that will dissolve those away. And then we're going to do the same thing to the bottom. We're going to delete and choose limited dissolve. And we're going to do the same thing up top here. We're going to hit delete and we're going to choose limited dissolve. So that kind of cleans up that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to select all of these. Okay. Now these are a little bit different. We're going to right click and we're going to choose merge vertices by distance. And let's go ahead and change it to 2 millimeters. And so you can see here, even when we did that, see those, so some of those little black dots aren't selected. So you see when I just went in and just selected everything, you see how some of those things are not selected. So let's do that again. I just want to re-emphasize this point. So see, some of those are not selected there. Now, if we go into wireframe mode, this could help us. If we go into wireframe mode and then we select, now you can see all of our nodes are selected. Okay. So all the way up. So now when we do our revolve, it will work like we expect it to. At least it should. All right. So those are just like little caveats, little things that we have to look out for. But this has an excessive amount of nodes. So let's go ahead and select that. So what we're going to do is just, we're going to rotate this just a little bit so it's easier to select just what we want to select. We just want those right there. We're going to right click here. And let's go ahead and we'll do merge vertices again by distance. But this time we're going to back it off. We don't want quite so many. So we're just going to back it off to 1. So we cleaned it up a little bit. Maybe we'll do 1.5, maybe even. There we go. So it cleans it up some, but still maintains our profile. So now we can click on this and we can do the vertex to world origin. And because we're in wireframe mode, we don't have to worry about not selecting all of our nodes. And then when we spin it, we're going to go to our object mode here, but we're still in wireframe mode. So that's why it looks weird. But now we get the results that we are expecting. So we could still achieve what we want to achieve here with our toolkit as far as the revolve goes, but it is much more simplified, obviously, by just being able to click a button, specify the profile, and away we go. So that's example number 1. So let's repeat that whole process so you have a good understanding of how to utilize the profiles that we were going to give you. And let's take a look at that lamp example, because in that lamp example, we actually have to go one step further because we need to specify the thickness of our lamp. So let's do that. So let's go ahead and do File and Import and SVG. And let's see, it is going to be, I don't remember which one it was, 1 or 2. I think 2. Yeah, I think it's 1 I want to show you. That's our real basic one, right? So we're going to rotate it, X90, step 1. And then we have to convert it to a mesh. You can see right here, it's a path. That little icon shows you it's a path. So we're going to convert it to a mesh. Okay, so now you see that icon changed. Now it's a mesh. And now we can go into edit mode and we can click on that vertex. And we're going to do vertex to world origin. Okay, so now it is centered to the world origin. And then we're going to go ahead and select everything. And we're going to, now this one, we should be fine because it's just real simple. It's only 3 nodes, but we'll have to go ahead and spin it. And see, that's what it created for us. Okay. So that looks pretty cool, right? So now, but we have a little bit more work to do because we have our bottom. Okay. So remember in our new toolkit where we had those cap options, it takes care of the bottom for us. But in this case, we don't have that luxury. So we're just going to come in here and select all of these. And we're going to hit delete. And if we choose to dissolve vertices here, it did dissolve the vertices, but it left us this piece. Okay. So then we can come right over here and we can select our face, and then we can select that face. And when we hit delete, you'll see that we can delete the faces. And so now we're left with a lampshade that looks like that. Now this lampshade has no thickness to it. All right. So we need to be able to give it, obviously we need to be able to give it a thickness. And to do that is where we come in and add a solidify modifier. So to do that, we're just going to come in here to our wrench and choose add modifier. And we're going to choose solidify. And we could specify the thickness. So in our case, we're going to specify 3 millimeters. Okay. And now in this particular example, it doesn't really matter if it's adding 3 millimeters to the outside or 3 millimeters to the inside. It doesn't matter. But that's what this offset does. So if we set this instead of -1, we'll just set it to 1. Now watch what happens. Watch the offset there in the lampshade. It just offsets to the inside. That's the only difference. Okay. So, but with the auto revolve tool in our more advanced toolkit, we don't have to think about all these individual steps. It just does it, right? So there you go. There's our lampshade. So now what we could do is we can go ahead and export this. Now, Blender does not have an option by default to export to a 3MF file, and that's really the preferred file format. So that's why we added it to the toolkit, so we can export 3MF files. But we can export this as an STL. So let's do that. So we'll come here, File, Export, STL, and we'll just do it to the desktop here. Let's do it in class files, and let's just call it circular lampshade demo. And we'll export the STL. And then let's go into Bamboo and see what it looks like. So we're going to go into class files. And there is our STL file from Blender. Yes, we're going to convert it to millimeters. And so you see, there's our lampshade ready for printing. I say it's ready for printing. It's not really quite ready for printing because right now there's no way to add, for it to hang on the lamp. Okay, but we can do that pretty easily. So let me just show you how we would do that. So we're going to add a primitive cube. I choose to do this in Bamboo because I feel like it's just easier in Bamboo. So I just do it in Bamboo. But we're going to go ahead and scale this. We're going to make it 6 millimeters thick, just what I like to use. There's no real rhyme or reason to that. And then for the Y, front to back here, we're going to do 18. These are just values that I typically use. And then for the width here, let's just do, I don't know, let's try 150 to start with. And I think that's going to work out just fine. So let's go ahead and center this. So we're going to right click and center. So now this is in the center of my lamp. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that and then control click on my lampshade. We're going to right click and merge. And I want it to merge. Hold on just a second. Got to let a couple people in. I want to merge because I want to raise this bar vertically, and I can't do it unless I do merge those two together. So let's do that. So we're going to alt click here, and then we're going to click on our move tool, and we're going to bring this up. Let's just say something kind of sort of like that. All right. Then what we're going to do is we're going to all click on this. We're going to Control C, Control V. That will create us a copy. And then we're going to rotate this around. Like so. You see what we're doing? It's coming together. And even if it doesn't look like it, it is. So now what we're going to do is we're going to alt click here and we're going to scale this. So we're hit the S key on our keyboard and we're going to grab that little red cube and just start dragging. Start dragging. Start dragging. And what we're looking for here is I need to drag this back far enough where I can't see it sticking out. Right there. Okay. That's it. See, it's not sticking out. So now whatever size this is, so we're going to alt click it, go to our scale tool, and on the red dots here, it is 93.77. So we're going to make this one front to back 93.77. Okay. Now, if we alt click on this, let's see if we can see this a little bit more clearly. You see that shadow? What that is this horizontal piece is like inside my lampshade. That's why that shadow's created right there. Okay. And so when we go to print it, that's what we want. We want that to be inside my lampshade. Now, we can't actually put it on top of our lamp because we don't have a hole for our lamp post, right? So it really, this type of an assembly really depends on the type of lamp that we're using. I'm talking about a traditional, regular table lamp is what we're making the lampshade for in this particular example. But we need a hole there. So to add the hole, let's go ahead and do that. We're going to right click cylinder, and lamp posts by the standard, the threaded pipe that most lamps have in the middle of them are 10 millimeters. Okay. So if we make our hole 10 millimeters, it should slide in there just fine. So we're going to do that. So we're going to go to, or we could do 12 if you wanted a little bit of wiggle room, but for me, I'm just going to do 10. So we're going to do 10, and then we're going to do 10. And then for the height, I don't know, let's just do 50. All right. So there you go. So then what we're going to do is we're going to take this piece right here, and we're going to control click our assembly, right click and merge. And then we're going to alt click this piece, right click, change type to negative. Then we're going to alt click this piece and right click and center to the build plate. And then we're going to go to the move tool, and we're just going to move this up just like so. Okay. Now we can't really see it, right? It's a ghost, but you see that right there? So when we slice this plate, because that's a negative part, watch what happens. Now it's going to warn us and says, hey, you can't do this because you need supports. I don't know if you guys have watched the video, but I posted a video to the Facebook group where they were demonstrating bridge settings and how we're able to create geometry without supports. And this would be a case where it'd be worthwhile for you taking the time. There's all kinds of videos on YouTube about testing bridge settings. But this is one thing that you could save yourself a lot of filament, a buttload of print time, if you really want to spend some time understanding your printer's bridge settings. But you can see here, we have that hole where that cylinder was. And the reason I like to do it with negative parts like that is because if you wanted a different size hole, all you have to do is come in here, grab that piece and say, oh no, I need a 12 millimeter hole or whatever size hole you want. And that way you're not fixing this hole, right? But you see here, in order to print this, you're going to have supports. But if you go and take some time and test those bridge settings, it's possible that you could print this without supports. And like I said, it was just a day or two ago, I posted that video on the Facebook group where they were walking you through bridge settings and showing you different options. But there's a load of video tutorials on YouTube about figuring out your bridge settings. And if you go to MakerWorld, there's all kinds of files that you can download that will also allow you to test your bridge settings. So just go to MakerWorld, type in bridge settings, and you'll see all kinds of files you can download to test your bridge settings. But if you get your printer dialed in correctly, then you could create this in midair. You know, this is floating in air here, but it involves the print speed. You got to slow your bridge speed way down. You got to have your cooling fan on. They suggest on your filament, your temp setting on your filament, you know, dropping it down 5 to 10 degrees, all kinds of different options. But it's worth watching that video and see if you could dial in your print settings, because like I said, you could possibly print this without supports. I have not gone through doing that, but I know you can do it because there's lots of video demonstrations where they're you know, printing actual, like the Brooklyn Bridge with these long spans with no supports. And so, but there's all kinds of different applications where if you do dial in your print settings and really understand your print settings, your bridge settings in particular, where normally you would need supports, if you dial in your bridge settings and understand all the different things you have to change, then there's lots of instances where you wouldn't need supports. You know, like pay wands, you know, that big slot in a pay wand is one. Can openers, you know, there's a slot in a can opener. So there's all kinds of different models that could benefit from understanding your bridge settings a little bit. So I will go ahead and save this lampshade now that we got it made. So you have this also. All right, let's go back into Blender here. And let's we'll create one more here for you. We'll do one of the vases here. So we're going to go to File and Import and SVG. And what vase do we want to do? I don't remember what was what here, so we'll just do vase number 3. It'll surprise us. Okay, I like this one. So we select our shape. We go ahead and rotate. What did I do here? I didn't select my shape. I'm sorry. Okay, now we can rotate. So now it's been rotated. Oh, this is our little bud vase, I think. So then we're going to convert it to a mesh. And now we converted it to a mesh. And we're going to tab into edit mode. And we can let's see what's going on here. Something I didn't expect. Let me go back and let's start from scratch again. I don't know what's going on there. Let's try that again. So we're going to go back into SVG. We're going to go with the same one again. Aha, it's a little tiny one. There we go. So we're going to select that and we're going to rotate it. Let's select an object first. All right, convert it to a mesh. Tab, there we go. That's what I expected. Yes. So we're going to come in here and find our end cap vertices here. and then we can do the vertex to world origin. And then we're going to switch over to wireframe. And because we have a million little vertices here, we'll switch over to wireframe to select them. And then we'll spin it. Okay. And then we can switch back to normal mode if we want to. And now you can kind of see what this looks like. And you see what I was talking about? We have that little lip around the edge there. And of course, we do have the bottom to our vase. So then you just have that little bud vase there. So we'll go ahead and save this. And we'll just call it bud vase. Any questions of that we need to cover? No questions.
So all my SVGs, I need to make them like that to be able to drop them into Blender because I have made my SVGs and Inkscape. You lost me when I dropped it right there.
Yeah, as far as like I said, there's certain things that we would use Blender for. You know, our day-to-day keychains, hype chains, you know, the day-to-day type stuff, I wouldn't use Blender for because I feel like Inkscape is easier to use. But for stuff like this that we can't do in Inkscape, you know, it's fairly straightforward to use Blender as long as we have some specialized tools. You know, we can get through different projects, and there'll be other things that we're going to be doing in Blender too that we're going to be building tools for to, you know, help simplify the process. But you could see this was last week. You know, there's only a couple of buttons here, but I was like, even though those steps aren't too bad, you know, we rotate, we convert, we spin, you know, those aren't too bad. But if we could just click a button, that's even better. So that's why I created that auto revolve tool to simplify all the steps for us.
So is it possible for you to show us a fully colored SVG that can be just dropped in? Like skip the whole process of converting it to an SVG. We got that part of how to make it. Now we have the SVG fully made and drop it here. And what's the next steps? Because I know most of us is ready with an item to try.
Okay, so just to be clear, we wouldn't use, like, for example, let's pull up. Yeah, actually, I actually have it in class files. I was going to give you guys because I wanted to. It kind of sort of is right here. So this design is a design for a coaster. Okay. And this is straight out of Vectorizer AI. So we've used Vectorizer AI to convert it into an SVG. Okay. And so this is what we would get out of Vectorizer AI, right? We would have a bunch of groups. So we would come in here and right click and ungroup. And now we have 150,000 paths, right? So we don't want to take 150,000 paths into Blender.
We don't want to take this into Blender at all, because what is Blender going to do for us for a coaster design? Blender's not going to do anything for us. Now, could we create this design in Blender? Yes, we could. We could do that. But we, like I said, we wouldn't want to do that because we don't need Blender to create this coaster design. So that's why that's why there's not much point in using Blender for this particular job. Now, when we're talking about the toolkit, let's open this up for Inkscape. That's a totally different thing, because we do want to use the toolkit here in Inkscape. So this, so if we're going to convert this file to in Inkscape for a 3D model for a coaster, first thing we're going to do is resize it. So coasters are going to be 100 millimeter, typically 4-inch coaster. Okay, and then we're going to take the green and the gold, and we'll just turn that off for a moment. Oh, looks like we must have that. Let me see what happened here. Aha. Remember I said we should not have multiple instances of Inkscape open? That's why. So let's turn these all off. There we go. So now we're back. All right. So the green and the gold, we'll turn that off. Okay. And so you see we have this problem that we talked about earlier with these pieces. So we'll select all of those and choose this tool here, and that will punch all those out for us. And then we're going to combine all that text into one piece. And then down here, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to select all these pieces and parts, and we're going to punch out all the centers. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and we'll select one of these white pieces. We're going to right click, and then we'll select all of these white pieces and left click. And then that will filter just those two pieces. So again, we're going to select that, left click. What's happening here? There we go. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and select all those. And we can go ahead and turn that off. And then we'll select this. And we'll go ahead and merge that together. And then we'll take these pieces and this piece and merge that together. Then up top here, we can select these gold pieces and this one and bring that together. And then we'll go ahead and turn these two pieces off for a moment. And these two pieces will become one. So we'll go ahead and put those two together. Our stars will become one. We can put those together. And then this piece here, we're going to punch the centers out. And then we'll go ahead and weld those together. All right. So now let's go ahead and turn this off. Then these are all together. So we'll turn that off. Then we'll turn that. I'm just turning off the pieces that I know we're going to keep. Aha. So we can go ahead and make that one piece. Then turn that off. That's one piece. And then, yep, our stars and our green here. And then we have three pieces here. We have our gold, green, then gold again. So if I turn all those off, you can see if we look here in the list here, everything's accounted for. Okay. So now we'll turn everything back on. And that's what it takes to make this coaster design. We just have all of those pieces. There's really no like shortcutting it. That's just
all the pieces it takes. Now we could actually take these little green bits and this ribbon and combine those. But everything else more or less has to be the way it is. So then, now that we have all these parts, I would probably just go ahead and start naming them. So we'll do, this is the way I would normally do this. So for example, this will be our gold backplate. And then our next piece is our green backplate. So we're not even going to worry about extrusions and all of that right now. We're going to, we'll choose upper text. So we're just naming all the parts. Then this will be our lower text. This will be 40 years. And then we can choose our lower gold. And then we could do upper gold. And then we'll do gold ribbon. And then we will do green ribbon. And then we'll do our gold stars. And we'll call this ribbon text. So all that's taken care of. All that's taken care of. Let's do our gold backplates. So we'll do gold M backplate. And then we'll do green M. And then we'll do gold M fill. All right, so now we look at our list. Did we get everything? Looks like we do have everything. So we're good to go. We have it sized properly. Now we just have to focus on, actually we need one more piece. We need the green or the gold rim here. So we're going to take our green, shift click our gold and duplicate it, and then we'll cut it whole. And this piece will be our gold rim. Now you notice it's black. We added this little icon where it's a little color picker. So we can click and click inside the document to change that back to black. That's a fairly new tool as well. All right, so now we have all of our pieces and parts. So now it's just a matter of setting all the different Z heights. And this is really pretty straightforward for this particular design because everything on a coaster, we're going to have everything flat, okay? So everything's going to be flat on the coaster. So we're going to select everything right here, just like this, okay? And so the extrusion is going to be 1 millimeter. And then the Z height for this is going to be 3.5. And you'll see this all happen here in a second. Okay, so that takes care of that. And then our gold black plate here, that is going to be 4 millimeters. I'm just trying to think. Do I want to do that? Yeah, let's go ahead and yes, we'll go ahead and make that 4 millimeters. And then our green here, let's go ahead and make it, we'll make it 1. And the Z height for that will be 3.5 as well. And then for our gold rim up top here, that is going to be extruded 1, and the Z height is going to be 4.5. Okay. So that should be everything that we need to do for our coaster. So let's go ahead and do it. Let's go ahead and hit File, Save As, and we'll call it Class Coaster. And save. And so now the toolkit will convert this into the actual 3D model. So what it should be is we should have this gold 4mm stick, and all of this should be totally flat coaster. So let's see what happens here. Maybe I got it right, maybe I didn't. Let's see what's going on here. Did I not click on it? Maybe I didn't. There it goes. Okay, so now let's go back into Bamboo and see what kind of mess we created here. So we'll open up our project, Class Coaster. Okay, now it doesn't look like much, but that's because we have all these meshes that are conflicting. All of that is on the same plane because the coaster we wanted nice and smooth. So, but when we slice this, it should all work out. Sure enough. You see? So this is all smooth, but because of that rim sits 1mm proud. You see that there? But everything else is nice and smooth. So we have just a totally flat coaster. So it just depends on the job. And for, like I say, for most everything that we do, the way 3D printers are designed to work, they're not really designed to work with curved surfaces. That's why when we print things that are curved, it doesn't, the quality isn't as perfect as maybe we would like, because everything's created layer by layer by layer by layer. So for coasters and things that are flat that aren't curved, then really we wouldn't want to use anything but Inkscape, in my opinion. But if we're doing something that requires a curved surface, well, then we have to use some type of 3D modeling software that allows us to manipulate a curved surface. So hopefully that kind of sort of answers your question. Any other questions? If you have designs that you want that, specifically, like Jules got a free design out of us tonight. She got her hype chain done. So, all she had to do is say, hey, I want to see this demonstrated in class. So, so if you have a design that, you want to see demonstrated, feel free to post it on the Patreon there on the chat. And I can't guarantee we'll do it, but if I think it'll make for a good class, I will do it. Then you don't have to pay me to do it, and you don't have to take the time to do it yourself. So I encourage you to use that. And for those of you who are paid Patreon members, you do have an hour of design services every month that's part of your Patreon package. So just send me the details of what you want, and we can go from there. So keep that in mind. So yes, so next week, Friday, what's the question? Somebody's asking a question. I got to read this. Do you not sleep? No, I do not sleep. I literally do not sleep. Maybe work 20 hours a day until this software is done. But I do enjoy the challenge of making things. So not 3D printed things, computer software. I enjoy that challenge. But yeah, my kids think I'm a little crazy because they'll be up at 3, 4, 5 in the morning. Usually I sleep a couple hours after they go to school. It's 7 or 8 in the morning. But like, you worked all night? Yeah, I work all night. It's nice and quiet though this time of night, so I can concentrate and get a lot done. During the day with 7 kids, it's a little hectic. I always kid that I have to work 1 day a week to be able to afford all my kids because I have 7. So I have no choice but to work. All right, guys. Well, thanks for hanging in there. And I'll be hard at work getting this software wrapped up for Inkscape, and we'll go over it some more on Monday, and then a more in-depth class next Thursday. And if I feel like I'm ready to go before next Thursday, I will go ahead and release it. But I got to make a couple of videos on how to install it and register it and all that fun stuff. So getting the software ready is one thing, but then I have to have a few videos to go along with it so you guys know what you're doing. Otherwise, I'll get lots of emails. It just doesn't work. So I'm sure you'll probably find different bugs that I haven't come across, but yeah, just be thinking about it. Like, if there's something that you're doing over and over and over again, you're like, man, I wish I could just do this. You know, let me know what you're thinking, and maybe it's a tool I haven't thought of yet for the toolkit that we could just add it into it. But I'll get this video posted, and this one will be posted to the YouTube channel because we let everybody in tonight, whether they were a Patreon member or not. So this one you'll find on YouTube tomorrow. And then I'll post all the class files. So you have all the profiles. If you haven't already downloaded the extension for Blender will be in the class files as well. And all the models that we created tonight will be all in the class files for you. All right, guys. Well, I'll stop the recording and I will see you Monday.
Thank you.
Yep.